Good afternoon. Is this on? Yeah, here we go. Good afternoon. There you go, thank you. I feel the love. Welcome to our third installment of 2025 of our thought leadership series called FrameWORX. On behalf of our awesome hosts of Grace College, our partner OrthoWorks, sponsors and other partners like IU Research, All In Kosciuszko, Plug and Play, Indiana, and Lille, the Orthopedic Research Society, J&J MedTech, and of course, our awesome presenting sponsor, Zimmer Biomet. We are proud and honored to be here today in the orthopedic capital of the world. I am Vince Wong, and I serve as the president and CEO of BioCrossroads, which is the industry and private-public partnership organization that advances life sciences in the state of Indiana. What began here with a handful of pioneering, daring entrepreneurs with an amazing vision has grown into a global hub for life sciences, advanced manufacturing, and medical innovation that impacts millions of patients every year. Today, that legacy is alive and well through the innovators, scientists, surgeons, students, startups, and manufacturers, many of whom are here with us today, who are shaping the future of musculoskeletal health. Indiana is experiencing unprecedented momentum. In the past year, innovative companies have come into Warsaw and its surrounding areas and have announced major expansions, new technologies, and exciting new partnerships, each building on more than a century of orthopedic leadership. Little cocktail fact that probably a lot of you guys know already is Warsaw's orthopedic companies account for 1/3 of the global hip and knee replacement market share. From an economic impact perspective, the orthopedic industry here generates billions in annual revenue and sustains thousands of high-paying jobs, well above the state and national averages. From a workforce and talent perspective, Northern Indiana's Orthopedic Catalyst initiative is actively developing talent pipelines, fostering entrepreneurship, and investing in community infrastructure to attract and retain orthopedic companies and the vital talent necessary to power their growth. And OrthoWorks is expanding those efforts, launching new VR workforce training tools and growing K-12 programming to inspire and capture the imagination of the next generation. From a growth potential perspective, U.S. demand for primary hip and knee replacements, thank you for all you pickleball players, is projected to grow significantly by 2030, positioning Warsaw to capture even more market share globally. And from a state support perspective, just in the last year, the state has invested $30 million to grow and retain orthopedic talent and innovation here in the orthopedic capital of the world. What we're talking about today is not just technology or talent, it's about outcomes, impacting patients' lives every day. It's about improving mobility, extending independence, and enabling a better quality of life for millions of people around the world. From surgical robotics and biologics to regenerative medicine and AI-driven design, Indiana is not just keeping pace, indeed we are leading. And that's why framework events like this exist, to bring our ecosystem together in a very intentional way, to connect ideas with expertise and build momentum that will define the next generation of orthopedic and musculoskeletal innovation. On behalf of BioCrossroads and our partners and sponsors, thank you for being here. And we invite you to stick around after our program this afternoon for a networking and poster session event right here at the MOCC. Before we dive in, let's hear directly from our great hosts, Grace College, and their wonderful work to support orthopedic innovation in our community.
We know that you want to live a life on purpose. In order to do that, you need an education that equips you for more than a career. You need one that prepares you for your calling. The problem is, you don't just want another college experience. You want to grow spiritually, be challenged academically, and gain real-world experience that makes a difference. We believe that you are created for more. More faith, more purpose, more impact, and that belief drives everything we do. At Grace College, we understand that choosing the right college can feel overwhelming, which is why we've walked alongside thousands of students just like you, helping them engage their God-given purpose to know Christ and to make Him known. Here, you'll find a Christ-centered community that supports and challenges you, will equip you with real-world experiences, and celebrate with you as you step boldly into your future, confident, faith-driven, and ready to make an impact. So take your next step. Discover more, grow more, and become more at Grace College.
To interact with any of the Grace College students around today, and I've done that on many times. I always come away with a renewed hope and optimism for the next generation. They're always very poised and very professional, so thank you to President Flam for being a great host today. And thank you to all the rest of our sponsors for making this day possible. So let's get started, and I will introduce the next panel. Today's discussion, we're starting with leaders whose work is critical to helping ensure that the leadership in orthopedics here in Warsaw, in advancing innovation, strengthening the workforce, and building on more than a century of expertise continues on. Their contributions continue to fuel the future of musculoskeletal health, ensuring that this wonderful community remains at the forefront of patient care, research, and manufacturing excellence. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Ryan Christner, President and CEO of OrthoWorks, Dr. Emmy Kreklau, Executive Director of the Catalyst Corridor at Grace College, and Drew Flam, President of Grace College and moderator for our first discussion. It's titled Leading the Way with Innovation in Warsaw. Welcome to you all. Thank you. Drew?
Well, thank you all for joining us here in Winona Lake, Warsaw, Kosciuszko County. We are excited to be hosting today. Let's give it up for all the poster presenters before this session. They did a fantastic job. All 50% that I understood was really good, and I also learned I have really bad grip strength, so I got to work on that apparently. We're excited in this session just to kick us off and talk about what's going on in Kosciuszko County and even why this event is here in the first place. And so, Ryan, I'm going to start with you and let you kick this off. As some in here are part of the orthopedic industry, been so for a long time. Some of us are just learning what a tibial plateau is and why it even matters. So just talk to us a little bit about the OrthoWorks and the orthopedic industry. You are new to OrthoWorks as the president and CEO, but you've been in the orthopedic industry for a long time. What's the innovation going on and why is this here?
Yeah, thanks, Drew. And OrthoWorks is a community organization, community development organization that's focused on furthering the orthopedic capital for generations to come. It's a 15-year-old organization, and you know we've kind of gone through some different eras in OrthoWorks' time frame. I've been a part of the organization for about a decade as an industry voice, and now I get the honor to lead the organization in the role that I have. So I'm excited. I'm a little bit partial. I think this is the best era yet for OrthoWorks in the future that we have to come, and we're building on the shoulders of some wonderful people that kind of took it to this level, and we're ready to crank it up just a little bit more. So we're super excited. I mean, obviously, you know, I wake up every day and look in the mirror, and then I recite, we're in the orthopedic capital of the world. And I hope you felt that when you got up this morning or drove into town, and you might have seen the signs. It's something real, you know, and we've been around for 130 years here in Kosciuszko County. And, you know, we're pretty competitive, and we would put ourselves against anybody else as far as a cluster perspective. We've got community engagement and development that's happening like no other. We've got lots of projects happening. I mean, you'll hear about those throughout the day. We've got 20 plus projects between what's happening through OrthoWorks and through Grace College around our community to make it a better place for our current residents and for future residents as we look to develop that talent pipeline.
And this venue is a testament to that. This is the Orthopedic Capital Center. And our community is so important to us. You know, we kicked our volleyball team out and sent them to Florida for a couple days because we wanted to host this event because it's so important to us at Grace College and for our community. So Dr. Emmy, as you have affectionately become known in our community, let me turn to you real quick. And you are leading the Catalyst Corridor at Grace College. First of all, explain to us, what is the Catalyst Corridor? How does it support orthopedics in Warsaw? And also, you're a newcomer. You've come out of industry as an executive at Eli Lilly to take on this role here. You know, what have you learned about Warsaw?
Wow, great question. So Catalyst Corridor is the name of the grant that Grace submitted to the Lilly Endowment last year as part of the College and Community Collaboration Grant Initiative from the endowment. And Grace was one of 19 schools in Indianapolis that was awarded one of the CCC grants. And Grace received $27 million from the endowment. But that's really a down payment on over $100 million of capital projects that we'll be launching over the next 5 years right here in Kosciuszko County and Warsaw and Winona Lake, in partnership with a lot of community organizations, including OrthoWorks. So collectively, over 20 projects that we'll be launching, and a lot of different areas. I would say innovation in terms of the orthopedic industry and entrepreneurial community here in the area. Health and wellness. We're a very rich community in terms of natural resources, and just continuing to enhance and build on those natural resources to enhance the health and wellness of the community. Also a lot around connectivity and connections. So the name Catalyst Corridor actually specifically refers to the pathway that connects Winona Lake and Grace campus to downtown Warsaw. So right outside of the MOCC where we are today, Kings Highway, if you follow it toward Warsaw, it connects to Winona Avenue, which takes you to downtown Warsaw. And the Catalyst Corridor projects, many of them really kind of span that entire corridor. So we want to enhance the connectivity and accessibility and really just make it more connected as a community. So, so just a lot of exciting projects that Ryan and I are going to be working together to launch over the next several years, and a lot of organizations in the community. So you asked me about being newer to Kosciuszko County. So after spending 25 years down in Indianapolis, and then recently coming up to Grace last fall to work on the Catalyst Corridor project, I've learned a lot about not just Grace, but the community, and that's part of what I love about this role, is that I get to support Grace, but be very much integrated and connected to the community. But to be honest, even after being in the life sciences industry sector for as many years as I was, I did not know that Warsaw, Indiana is the orthopedic capital of the world. So it's just really amazing that Indiana is home to one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, but also several of the largest orthopedic companies in the world. So just proud Hoosiers. I guess one of the other things that I've learned is kind of coming back to the natural resources, that there's over 100 lakes here in Kosciuszko County. And again, having lived in Indiana for many, many years, I was not aware of how many beautiful lakes there are up here. And that's just a really special part of the community, so.
You learn that real quick when you try to get from one side of town to the other, that there are a lot of lakes to drive around, correct? All right, quick other newbie question, just in case anybody's sticking around for dinner tonight. You've had the chance now to check out restaurants. What's your restaurant recommendation?
Well, my favorite would be Cerulean. And there used to be a Cerulean down in Indianapolis, so I was excited when I heard that there was one here, but it's down in the village right here in Winona Lake, close to our campus, which I love, but great sushi, poke bowls, bento boxes, and just the vibes of the village. It's just a great place to hang out and walk around. There's a lot of great shops and places down there by the lake.
So if you're making a dinner reservation while we're talking, we're fine with that. That's okay. Ryan, you're adding on to this from the Orthopedic Industry Retention Initiative, $30 million from the state of Indiana, and Representative Snow is here today as well, who's a significant part of that. Can you walk us through what you're doing to deploy those dollars, how that's connected to the Catalyst Corridor, and how that's going to continue to boost the orthopedic strength?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're so grateful to be the recipient of this $30 million grant through the state. And the focus is to retain and attract talent for the orthopedic industry. Now, one question that comes up is, if we're putting a park at a community, do you have to have a Zimmer Biomet badge to, go down the slide? No, you don't have to have that. It benefits everybody, and that's the beauty of these projects, is while we're focusing on attracting and retaining talent for our industry and our cluster, the entire community benefits. So we have a large presence with agriculture in our county, and there's other industries that are going to benefit from it as well. So we have 11 projects focused on these $30 million, and they range from attainable housing. There's a community amenities program. There's experiences, some innovation centers. We're going to revitalize some parts of our community that maybe need a facelift, and just looking to build that infrastructure for future development. So we're experiencing growth like no other here in Warsaw and Kosciuszko County, and we want to make sure that we're laying the pavers down so that way we can expect future growth as we continue to evolve as a community.
That's great. How many of you took a tour today of an orthopedic facility? How many were on one of the tours? Okay, good number of people. And Ryan, I know you led one of those as well. So tell us just a little bit about the tours that everyone was on today.
For sure, yeah, and I got the benefit to be at Zimmer Biomet every time. I've been there a couple times, and every time they open that furnace and you feel the heat just billowing out of their foundry, it's just awestruck. So just very neat. We had great conversation going through there. And I think sometimes as we host people from outside our community, people just are always awestruck about what we have here. We have 130 years of orthopedic excellence that people got to witness. Now, they're state-of-the-art. I think it was Building 19. There's some automation going in there. And that's just a culmination of these 130 years of innovation happening all along the way. So some of the tours went to some smaller shops. We've got a great network of contract manufacturers and supporting organizations within our community that support the local OEMs, but also support other OEMs throughout the nation. So it's thriving. It's the heartbeat. That's where my background comes from, and I've got a special spot in my heart for all of our contract manufacturers and support groups, because honestly, I think without them, we wouldn't be the orthopedic capital of the world as well.
Dr. Amy, you mentioned that you didn't know this was the orthopedic capital of the world. So this is kind of for both of you, but what do you see going on where we're trying to take the message of what's happening here to the state of Indiana, to the country globally, beyond this event, to make sure people know like stuff's happening both in med tech and in orthopedics. Ryan, what do you see and what are we doing to take it global?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, for me, one of the things, I was a Grace grad as well, and to be able to experience the globe through the lens of orthopedic industry. So Warsaw is where the globe comes to meet orthopedics. And that's just an interesting microcosm of how businesses are coming from all around the world, looking at us for expertise, and, we like to pride ourselves. We're the center of excellence for orthopedic innovation in the future. And so we're taking that anytime we get the opportunity. We've had many opportunities just in the last 60 days to have organizations from outside the state and even outside the country come talk to us. They're interested in having a presence in the U.S. because of the market, because of some global shifts in R&D support and things like that. And we're here to welcome them with open arms, and we connect them with people within the ecosystem. We want to make it an easy transition for them as possible.
I should have probably mentioned that you are an esteemed two-time alum of Grace College. So yes, we're thankful for our alums doing great things. But we're also thankful for our other partners. We know IU, Purdue are going to share some more later about the great things that are going on at their institutions. Amy, talk to us a little bit about at Grace, what the partnerships look like, what's going on at Grace that's going to continue to strengthen the orthopedic industry.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of, I would say, great connections between Grace and the orthopedic industry here in Warsaw. We really want to, I would say, build on those connections and strengthen the collaborations and partnerships between Grace and the orthopedic industry. An example of that, excuse me, is a collaboration between the Grace Engineering Program with a company called LifeJoint, which came through the Plug and Play MedTech program last year. And the CEO of LifeJoint, Marcia Hart, got connected with our engineering program. Fred Wentorf leads the mechanical engineering program here. And through that connection, they really built a strong research collaboration. So Fred has industry experience in orthopedics, so his knowledge of the industry, his expertise in device testing, along with the kind of innovation student collaboration with the project has really just come together and taken off. So we definitely want to see more of those kinds of research collaborations happening between the academic, certainly Grace, but other academic institutions with the orthopedic industry. Certainly the National Science Foundation grant opportunity that Dr. Melissa Casina is going to talk about is another fantastic opportunity for academic and industry partnerships. So maybe one other program that is quite unique is we just launched an orthopedic MBA program here at Grace, which is probably the first and only program of its kind. And the first cohort is taking off this year, and we have 8 orthopedic companies that are sponsoring orthopedic MBA students at Grace to be fellows and to really come alongside and learn about the industry and apply business tools to solve industry challenges, and that really positions them to step into leadership roles in the industry. And so that's a great example of partnership as well.
You guys have done a great job of bragging on all that we're doing right now, but we need to do more. And so from a state, federal government, academic, private industry perspective, you know, to help our orthopedic industry advance to the next level, what else do you think needs to happen?
Yeah, I think specifically for some of the infrastructure that I mentioned earlier, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. And there's US 30. Many of you, some of you might have came into Fort Wayne or you traveled from Fort Wayne. US 30 goes from Fort Wayne to Warsaw here. And we actually have a lot of folks that travel from Fort Wayne to come to work here in the orthopedic industry. So that corridor is very important to us. We've been in some consistent conversations, and there's an initiative to try to make that more of a highway. And the reality is we continue to expand our scope. If we look along that US 30 corridor, there's over 100 businesses and organizations that support the orthopedic industry. That's pretty powerful. And so it's not just Warsaw, it's not just Kosciuszko County. It extends all the way into Allen County and Fort Wayne, and even up to South Bend, and there's some other places around the state. But that one in particular, we've had some conversations about high-speed rail coming through here. So transportation continues to be a big thing. I'm sure some of you might have woke up this morning and thought, I'm gonna, take an Uber over to Grace College, and realize we don't have an Uber service here. So simple stuff like that we may have to do. I think, maybe Drew and I have a couple vans, we'll start hauling people around. So, but just to continue to do some data infrastructure and just all the infrastructure that it takes for us to continue to grow as we're leading the charge with innovation, obviously into the digital era and beyond.
And anything from your perspective as we wrap up that we need to do either as an industry or at Grace College to continue to thrive?
I would just highlight the academic and industry partnership. Even during my time at Lilly, the pharmaceutical industry, really leaned into that over the last 20-year period, and really became a productive and thriving ecosystem. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for the orthopedic industry to kind of build and expand its ecosystem to include a lot more academic partnership.
That's great. One last bonus question. I've told my kids about the 27 and the 30 million and all the good things happen in the infrastructure, and they just had one question they wanted me to ask, and that's, when's Chick-fil-A coming to Warsaw? Can you answer that question? No? Not as
Well, no definite answer, but if anyone knows Kosciuszko County, we're probably going to have 2 in Warsaw.
There you go, exactly.
We're not just going to get 1, we'll probably get 2.
That's absolutely. Well, thank you both for your good work. Thank you for the way you're leading in our community on our campus. And thank you all for letting us host today and be a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Dr. Emmy. Thank you, Ryan, for giving us a glimpse into how these organizations are really leading the way and continuing to nurture and feed the critical infrastructure necessary for this sector to grow in Kosciuszko County. We're now going to broaden the lens and the aperture to look at musculoskeletal health through the eyes of a physician, researcher, and advocate whose work has impacted patients across the country. As we think about what it takes and means to innovate for impact, it is essential, and indeed a privilege, that we keep the patient at the center of everything we do. Our keynote speaker has exactly done that and has dedicated his life to that mission. Dr. Kurt Weiss is Associate Professor in the University of Pittsburgh's Department of Orthopedic Surgery and Division of Musculoskeletal Oncology. Dr. Weiss holds joint appointments in surgical oncology and pathology and serves as the advisory dean for the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine and is vice chair of translational research. The musculoskeletal oncology laboratory he leads is focused on understanding sarcoma's metastatic potential. Dr. Weiss is a founding member of the Musculoskeletal Oncology Research Institute, or Initiative, and is author of more than 80 peer-reviewed publications, and serves on national research and mentorship committees. He's also a founding member of both the Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma Advocacy Group and the Pittsburgh Sarcoma Research Collaborative. And if that's not enough, Dr. Weiss is a member of the Musculoskeletal Tumor Society, where he chairs the research committee, and also serves on the board of the Connective Tissue Oncology Society. Beyond all that, Dr. Weiss is also a survivor of metastatic osteosarcoma, bringing a rare and powerful personal perspective to his work. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Kurt Weiss. As Dr. Weiss joins me here, this became personal for me last night as we were breaking bread together at Jim's house. Learned that Kurt's a fellow domer. Yep. So go Irish.
Go Irish.
And then also my own niece was diagnosed with osteosarcoma a couple years ago, and found out her treating physician at Mayo and her ongoing doctor at the Cleveland Clinic all trained with Dr. Weiss, the same fellowship program at University of Toronto. And Dr. Weiss gave me the reassuring note that my niece was under great care with those 2 physicians. So that was really, really special and really a blessing. So thanks, Dr. Weiss. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Wow, thank you, Vince. I wish my mom was here. She could have heard that. Get the old timer going so we don't get further behind. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm having the time of my life. Anytime I get the opportunity to see old friends, Dr. Cassina, Dr. Dreese, Dr. Dan Wirtz, who is one of my favorite humans and has been such a marvelous mentor to me, and meet new friends like Vince and Ryan and Dr. Emmy. That's a good day, and so thank you for giving me this opportunity. I have no relevant disclosures, but I've never given a talk like this before. So if it's terrible, be a pal and tell me so we can spare future audiences of the carnage. All right, so our objectives are to explore the confluence of orthopedic and cancer care and the strengths of multidisciplinary teams. I want to make a brief but relevant tangent here to highlight something that I've been thinking about pretty much nonstop since I had dinner at Mr. Lancaster's house yesterday, and sort of extend on the remarks of Vince and Ryan and Dr. Emmy. The confluence of musculoskeletal largesse in basic science, technology, patient care, industry that exists here, I don't know if that exists anywhere else. In fact, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. You have the ingredients for an extraordinary soup that no one else can make. So I think that's really, really exciting. And what can a musculoskeletal oncology struggling surgeon scientist possibly add to the discussion to help you do that? Well, we have about 23 minutes to find out. I want to talk very briefly about a study that we're doing that highlights the importance of teams that you wouldn't necessarily put together, and where I think, or rather where I would like, the future to lie. But first, the organizers of the meeting thought, and I agreed, that it might be instructive to go through a small amount of my personal history to sort of understand better my frame of reference and why I'm so darn passionate about this stuff. And so without further ado, here we go. If you've ever read this book or seen this movie, The Fault in Our Stars, the male lead, Augustus, has osteosarcoma, which literally means bone-growing cancer. When I was 15 years old, freshman in high school, in training for football, I had some pain in my right shin bone. And I guess I complained about it enough that my mom wouldn't let me go mountain climbing with the Boy Scouts until I got it checked out. So to humor the old lady, I went to the doctor and got an x-ray. And to my surprise, the sports medicine doctor sent me the next morning to a buddy of his down at the university who was an orthopedic oncologist, and I had never heard of such a thing. But I went. The next day, Dr. Mark Goodman dropped the bomb on me and my family. He examined me, looked at the x-rays and said, "Kurt, it looks like you have a textbook example of osteosarcoma, that is bone cancer. We will have to do a biopsy to be sure, but if I'm right, then you have a 65% chance of being alive in 5 years, and you should expect to lose your leg from above the knee." That was a bad day. The next day, I had that biopsy, and I met my medical oncologist, Dr. Mike Woolman, who is every bit as lovely as he appears in this picture. These two guys were both at my wedding, and that next Sunday was Mother's Day. And now that I'm a parent, I can understand a little bit more what that must have been like for my mom. Dr. Goodman was right. It was osteosarcoma, so I started chemotherapy right away. And routine staging scans showed that, indeed, the cancer had already spread to my lungs. I didn't know it at the time. Ignorance is bliss. But this is absolutely the worst news I could have gotten. As we'll talk about a lot in the next few minutes, the problem with cancer is not where it starts, it's where it finishes. Dr. Wirtz, Dr. Collier, and I got a pretty good answer for the tumor on your arm or your leg. That's surgery. What we don't have a good answer for, what we've never had a good answer for, is what to do when the cancer spreads. So now my survival isn't 65%, it's closer to 20. Okay, well, I had some additional scans that showed that limb salvage was possible, and I decided to have a procedure done by this guy, Dr. Henry Mankin, who was the chair of orthopedics at Harvard University. And the way we came across his name was that he's a Pittsburgher, born and raised in Pittsburgh, and actually attended the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. So I finished my chemotherapy and went up to Boston and had my surgery with Dr. Mankin. Came back to Pittsburgh, started chemotherapy again. The incision fell apart thanks to chemotherapy, and I had additional surgery to remove those lung tumors. That New Year's I spent with my family and the Notre Dame band at the Orange Bowl in Miami. Now, I wasn't going to talk about this, but we are in Indiana. So when I couldn't play football anymore, I obviously wasn't playing football anymore after I got my diagnosis, so I relied more on my music to sustain me. I'm a saxophonist. And also my big sister Gretchen, who you're going to meet in a couple slides, went to Notre Dame. And I started going out to campus when I was 8 or 9 years old, and very, very quickly fell in love and decided that I wanted to go there. So for my Make-A-Wish experience, I wanted to combine these two loves of music and Notre Dame, and I wanted to play a new saxophone with the Band of the Fighting Irish at whatever bowl game they went to that New Year's. It was the Orange Bowl in Miami, and the Irish were triumphant. From the highest peak to the lowest valley, shortly after I got back, my friend Brent died, and he had bone cancer just like I did that had spread, and it's 35 years later and it still hurts. I think the worst thing about being sick is when your friends don't do well. He would have been 51 on April 1st. Okay, so I was almost done with my chemotherapy, and new scans show that the tumor had progressed in my lungs. Now, I know not everybody here is a physician, but if you're taking very powerful medicines to prevent a specific bad thing from happening, and the bad thing happens anyway, how well do you think that treatment is working? Not very well. So I had more surgery to remove those tumors, and my oncologist pulled my mom and dad aside and said, "Hey guys, this isn't going well. Kurt could go downhill pretty fast, and you need to be prepared for that." And so they purchased a funeral plot for me and started working out the details of my funeral mass. These were very, very dark times for my family. But out of that darkness came a ray of hope. This is my sister Gretchen, and she and her boyfriend, now husband, were living and working in Allentown at the time. And they read an interesting article in the Allentown Morning Call about a clinical trial for patients with metastatic osteosarcoma that was taking place at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. Now, I don't suppose anyone here has ever seen the Allentown Morning Call? Okay, I don't blame you. It ain't the Wall Street Journal. So why in the world this little publication would have had a story about a ultra-rare kind of cancer that nobody's heard of or cares about, and a clinical trial happening over 1,000 miles away in Texas? It can only be described as providential. So we reached out to the principal investigator, Dr. Jeannie Kleinerman, and she determined that we were eligible for the study. So, not having any other good options, Mom and I packed our bags for Houston, and we spent the next 3 months getting the first part of the clinical trial. Now, I still didn't think I was going to die, but I wasn't foolish enough to think that you go 1,000 miles away to participate in an experimental treatment because everything's going swell. And I remember thinking, if I have to die, all right then, but damn it, somebody's going to learn something so that maybe the next kid and the next family don't have to do this. I came back to Pittsburgh and finished the clinical trial at home, and went off the clinical trial on December 18th. And then the craziest thing happened. It worked. It was successful, and I've been cancer-free from that point on. That's not the end of the story, but that's all we're going to talk about for today. So some things that I learned. Again, metastatic disease is the enemy. And we need to do a better job at that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. There is Thank God, when I'm taking care of a patient with sarcoma, it's not just me. Thank goodness for that. It takes a whole army of people. It takes me and the medical oncologist and the radiation oncologist and pathology and radiology and physical therapy and a dozen other people. It takes a whole army of professionals that all bring what they do best to the care of one patient. And I think that's very similar to what you're trying to accomplish here. I learned that inherent biological systems can be used to fight disease. And finally, perhaps most importantly, cancer research saves lives, full stop. This is not something that I say to my patients so that they'll feel better, or to the people in my lab so that they'll work harder. I am alive because I participated in an experiment, period. That is my reality that I live with every day. Now, we're certainly more than bags of trauma. We're more than a collection of our successes and failures, but certainly the things and people that happen to us influence a lot what we do and where we go. So for an example, if you take a kid and give him a horrible metastatic bone cancer and expose him to these teachers in orthopedic oncology, Dr. Mankin, Dr. Goodman, and Dr. Wirtz, who's in the audience, you might get yourself a musculoskeletal oncologist. At the same time, if you take a kid and give him a horrible metastatic bone cancer and expose him to these teachers in science, Chris Evans, Jeannie Kleinerman, she's the lady that saved my life, Chan Khanna at the National Cancer Institute, and Dr. Drisi, who's here with us today also, and one of the wisest men I ever met, you might get yourself a translational scientist. Now, some of you are probably going to know this name and this guy. This is my former chairman, Dr. Freddie Fu. And for those of you who don't know, this guy was a titan in our field. He was an early adopter of arthroscopy and essentially helped to invent the field of orthopedic sports medicine. And I didn't know it, but this picture was taken about 6 weeks before he died. Freddie always said, do the right thing, take care of the patient, and the patient will take care of you. Not many people get to say that they love their boss. I love my boss, and I think about Dr. Fu every day. And this is what Freddie hired me to come back to Pittsburgh and do, to be the old school triple threat. That is a guy or a lady who can operate in the morning, teach the med students at noon, and go into the lab in the afternoon. The question is that even possible in 2025? American medicine's always been pretty good. It's also pricey. We're all being asked to do more with less. There's all these new regulations that we're learning. I hope it's better in the state of Indiana, but in Pennsylvania, it seems like there's a lawyer around every corner waiting to stand up and tell you you're stupid. So that's difficult. And when I'm not worrying about my patients, one of the things that keeps me up at night is, does the health system value what I do? Or have I gone the way of old T-Rex or the California condor? Well, obviously, I hope not, for selfish reasons. I think we can all agree that the purpose of this enterprise is to improve the quality of life for our patients and their families. And scientists, as brilliant as they are, don't always understand pathology and the pressures of the clinic. Also, I'm quite sure that physicians, as practically perfect in every way as they are, don't always know what science can do for them. So this idea of translational research is something that I take quite literally. I do think that there's a need, especially in this era of big data, for people that can understand the language of the bench and the language of the clinic and can help those two teams work together to their greatest potentials. Okay, switching gears. The most common, when we talk about bone cancer, the most common kind of bone cancer is not what I had, as we shall see. The most common type of cancer that affects the skeleton is actually metastatic disease, meaning the cancer started someplace else and then found its way into the skeleton. Just to get granular on that with some numbers, there will be about 600 cases of osteosarcoma in the United States this year, so about 1 in a million. In contradistinction, there will be about 2 million diagnoses of cancer, and just under 10% of those folks are going to have skeletal involvement. So if you do that math, it's probably somewhere between 160 and 200,000 patients every year that are diagnosed with cancer that involves their skeleton. The most common types are, when we teach the medical students this mnemonic, it's lead kettle or BLT with a kosher pickle. So prostate, breast, kidney, thyroid, lung, okay, lead kettle. Now, to my detriment, I didn't take one economics course at Notre Dame. I'm not proud of that. But, $12.6 billion per year and 17% of the entire cancer expenditure seems like it's pretty significant. Now, so who cares? What's so bad about getting cancer in your skeleton? The answer is plenty. You can have a pathological fracture, meaning that the cancer has gone to the bone and weakened the bone to the point where it breaks, pain, nerve compression, loss of function, all things that we as orthopedic advocates should hate for our patients. And a little soapbox moment, I do think that cancers that start in the skeleton and cancers that go to the skeleton, those are our diseases, right? As orthopedic people, that's our baby. And we haven't done, I think, a good enough job of taking charge of the research and treatment of these maladies. And I'd like to see us not abdicate that. I'd like to see us own that. Some great news, the life expectancy of patients diagnosed with cancer is getting better all the time. This is due to better diagnosis and better treatment. It seems like, I don't know what it's like for you, Dan, but every time I turn around, I'm hearing of a drug I've never heard of before, some small molecule inhibitor that's going to help someone, and it's wonderful. The flip side of that is for guys like me and Dan and Chris, what was before good enough and sufficient for our patients, now that they're living longer and living better, it might not be good enough. So we've got to do a better job. This is a study that I'm doing that's a collaboration between the Division of Musculoskeletal Oncology and our friends in the Mobile Sensing and Health Institute, or MOSHI. And you wouldn't necessarily put those two groups together, but this is what we're doing. Now, there's nothing that Dr. Wirtz and I do more often than stabilize a bone before it breaks. Okay. And this wonderful paper from Clinical Orthopedics and Related Research in 2020 showed very definitively that patients do better if we get to the fracture before it gets to them, right? If we fix the bone before it breaks rather than fixing it after it breaks, those patients survive longer. Okay. I'll see a patient in the office and I'll say, holy crap, you got a big hole in your femur, I got to put a rod in it, and they'll ask a silly question like, when am I going to feel better? Now, Dan's probably better at this than I am, but I kind of wave my hand and say, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. The truth is, we don't know. We don't know. It would be great to be able to see a patient who asks that question and say, Mr. Lancaster, our data shows that at post-op day 18, most of our patients are feeling better. So if you get through that first 2.5 weeks, you're going to be okay. I can't say that now, and I need to be able to say that. Some of the questions we want to address are, are we as good as we think we are? Do patients get to their pre-op level of function, and if so, when? Can we predict based on patient factors, like comorbidities perhaps, or tumor factors, what kind of cancer it is, how that patient's going to do? And if they're not doing well, what do we do about that? When do we intervene with physical therapy or other things, and what do those things look like? There are 1,000 questions we can ask based on these data. So the way we're doing it is when a patient comes in and I consent them for surgery, I'll also give them the opportunity to participate in this study. If they agree, we'll give them a Fitbit that collects passive biometric data, things like their step counts, their heart rates, all of these things. They don't have to do anything. It all gets collected by the Fitbit and remotely sent to the MOSHI people. And we will also send them weekly patient-reported outcomes measures to their phones in areas of sleep disturbance, physical function, pain, and depression that are all cancer-specific. And this is just what the protocol looks like in picture form. So here's an example of one patient, and I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that each patient tells their own story. Like this is a great, I think, application of personalized medicine. So this lady had metastatic breast cancer to her femur. We gave her a rod, and these are her step counts. through the course of the treatment. And she was pretty steady Eddie. These 3 days, or the 3 days in the hospital, and except for this blip right here, she was pretty much even the whole way through. And her patient-reported outcomes did what we hoped they would do, right? Things like the sleep disturbance, the pain interference, and the depression, they all went down, not terrifically, but slightly. So that's kind of what we want to see. Here's another lady, also has metastatic breast cancer to her femur, and also had a nail put in her left femur by me. Look at this. She's knocking it out of the park. I mean, goodness gracious, she's doubled or more her step count after surgery. So you think, certainly, her patient-reported outcomes must be off the charts. Well, this lady is kind of glasses half empty and kind of Eeyore kind of person. So maybe this is a way for us to say, Mrs. Jones, like, this is what normal patients do. This is what you're doing. You should be proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. And maybe that'll help her be a little less Eeyore. I don't know. Up to this point, I think we can safely conclude that musculoskeletal cancer has an enormous societal, emotional, and economic burden. These diseases require, they demand teamwork. And I think we're kind of the poster child for that. And trying to figure out a way to get big data down to the level of the individual. How can we make big data work for one patient? I think that's what I'd like to get better at. What do I think, or rather hope, is down in the future? Well, I want big data to be able to talk to other big data. So this is what I mean by that. Here, this is a RNA sequencing heat map that is from one of my papers from last year. And this is an MRI scan on one of my patients. The things that Melissa and I do in the lab, genomics, proteomics, metabolomics, all these big data things, they're always getting better and they're always getting less expensive, which is marvelous if you're a guy like me. Now, this is interesting. If you look at who gets the most imaging studies, who gets the most scans, it's oncologists and orthopedic surgeons, right? So me and Chris and Dan are right in the middle of that. Nobody orders more scans than we do. Well, pictures are data. The smart engineering people and computer people in the room know how to describe this with zeros and ones. I don't know how to do that, but somebody does. So is there a way that we can put the chocolate with the peanut butter and get to a point where we can say, based on a scan, this is probably what the genetics look like? Another thing that I thought of this morning was that the three of us are always getting preoperative chemotherapy, preoperative radiation for our patients. And we take them to the operating room, but we don't know if those interventions were successful until the tumor's out, and 2 weeks later we get a path report saying the chemo worked or didn't work, the radiation worked or didn't work. Wouldn't it be cool if we could teach the computer what a good response looks like? That would be really neat. I would like that a lot. Again, bringing precision medicine to a whole new level. So in conclusion, we need to be intentional about the synthesis of multidisciplinary teams that all bring what they do best. And I think really that's what you're trying to accomplish here, isn't it? Because, man, there's not another environment like this on planet Earth. And I'm really, really so excited to see what you guys accomplish. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, bring some friends. We need to do a better job of owning our problems, and I am calling myself out completely on that as it relates to musculoskeletal cancer. All of this is easier said than done, right? It took a lot of time and work to get everybody in the room, and that was a labor of love for Dr. Cassina and her colleagues and all of you. But now you're here, so it's time to keep your feet on the gas, in my opinion. We're probably all familiar with these words of Sir Winston. You may not have heard this from former President Coolidge. Nothing will take the place of persistence. Not talent, not genius, not education. press on fixes everything. And finally, Nunc Cepi. Blessed Bruno of Laterni was a monk, and his favorite phrase was Nunc Cepi, which means now I begin. He said, if I fall 1,000 times, 1,000 times I will get up and say, now I begin. And furthermore, I won't be so arrogant as to be surprised that I fell. We're humans, we fall. I want to thank all my funding sources. It's never me, it's always we. So thanks to everyone in the lab. And I am having a terrific time with all of you. And I really, really, really appreciate the invitation. And I wish all of you all the luck in the world. Thanks, guys. So I think with that, we will move immediately into the patient panel, and I would like to invite Mr. Hahn and also Ms. Paulson to the stage. Thanks, guys. And friendships start with first names. Let's do some introductions. Ladies first.
Sounds good. Hi, I'm Sarah Paulson. For the few of you who maybe saw that Sarah Paulson was speaking here today and thought, oh, award-winning actress Sarah Paulson is here today, I apologize for any disappointment that you may have. So,
I'm not disappointed. I'm Dan Hahn and happy to be here.
All right. So, as they say, is this thing on? Yeah. So this is the patient panel. You two are both orthopedic patients. Why don't you give us a little glimpse into your stories and how you get to be here? Ladies first.
yeah, so when I was growing up, I was always very active, and I was probably about 12 or 13 years old when started feeling just a little kind of out of breath more easily. I thought maybe I was just out of shape, needed to run some more laps, but nothing was really able to really relieve those symptoms. My symptoms continued to progress, where like walking up a flight of stairs would feel like my heart was just pounding out of my chest, was incredibly out of breath. I thought I had exercise-induced asthma, and ultimately saw an incredible doctor who thought maybe this was pectus excavatum. Had a CT scan and was diagnosed with severe pectus excavatum, which included chest compression shortly after I turned 18. And so for anyone who's not familiar with that condition, basically it causes your sternum and some of your ribs to grow inward, and so it creates kind of a sunken bowl shape in the center of your chest, and then again can compress your heart and lungs as well. So I had the NUS procedure about 3 weeks after I graduated from high school, which is how everyone I know wants to spend their summer after high school, right? Undergoing major thoracic surgery. And for the first time felt, for some years really, felt, oh, this is what it's like to take like a full, deep breath. The bar is only ever meant to be temporary, so I had it removed 3 years later, and have since gone on to be able to do lots of, the things that I never would have been able to do prior to my surgery.
Wow, that is, yes, indeed. Indeed, very inspiring. What about you, Dan?
Well, by way of full disclosure, I was in orthopedics with many of you for about 30 years at Biomet and retired 10 years ago at the Zimmer Biomet merger. And at that point, I became a compulsive pickleball player. I'd already had knee issues. I had a scope done about 25 years ago. But 6 years ago, I had my right knee replaced as the wear and tear from pickleball took its toll. So I had the right knee replaced. I know some of you will want to know, I did have a Zimmer Biomet Persona. I had the PS in this knee, and then 4 years ago, I had the left knee done, also a Zimmer Biomet Persona. This time, I'm a bit of a test case. I had the MC done on the left one. Done very, very well, been very happy with it. Far less traumatic than what Sarah had to go through. But you know, as many of you in this room know, you know, the technology, the surgical procedures, you know, it's been nothing short of miraculous. And, you know, when you're in the industry or in med tech generally, making that transition to a patient is very eye-opening in many respects. It's scary as hell too, but got through it very well, and very, very pleased to be here to talk about it.
So Dan, can we dig a little bit deeper in that? Sarah told us about her experience not being able to take a full breath, and I mean, that must have been pretty scary. What sort of things did you experience that got your attention?
Principally, it was pain, stiffness, swelling. You know, for a number of years, you know, I did the ice compression elevation. I lived on diclofenac sodium tablets longer than I probably should have. And it's, you know, that really did mask a lot of my symptoms. But it finally got to the point where, you know, if I had played pickleball or had taken a long walk on the beach or something during the day, I'd sit down, you know, at a restaurant, have dinner for an hour, and then getting up was miserable, you know, very, you know, painful, but very stiff, very difficult to walk. Fortunately, like a lot of patients, I never had trouble sleeping at night. A lot of patients with hip and knee issues, you know, they reach the point where they can no longer sleep well at night, and that's the trigger that gets them to the OR. But for me, it was just getting increasingly frustrated and not being able to play pickleball at the level I wanted to. My mobility was impacted, and that was really finally what did it for me. And again, it's important, I think, you know, with like NSAIDs and some people who take pain medication, you can mask it, but it's going to catch up with you eventually.
So if you feel comfortable doing so, both of you, you both had very different paths, a super rare thing and a thing that's debilitating but much more common in osteoarthritis. If you feel comfortable sharing, what are some of the emotional things that went along with your two stories?
Yeah, so for me, I think a big part of it was, I mean, being a teenager, right? It's a rough time in life, just in general, and then you layer on the, you know, not being able to keep up with my peers anymore, the, you know, self-esteem issues, and then also just like having doctors like not be able to tell you like what's wrong with you. It's incredibly scary, and just the prospect of like, oh my goodness, like, is this what my life is going to be like, you know, for the foreseeable future? And so, you know, being able to find, you know, a name, you know, a certain condition, and then know, okay, well, here's what we can do going forward, really provided a lot of just like reassurance and relief, and you know, I think was, you know, really an important part of my journey.
Well, for me, I started at 64 when I got my first knee. So I wasn't, you know, it wasn't as threatening. I was more emotionally, I would say, frustrated. I couldn't do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. It became more debilitating. Spending winters in Florida, roughly seemed like half the people I knew playing pickleball either had a hip or a knee replacement already. It was very common, and I think coming at it with my orthopedics background, I just had this view, I needed to just get in and fix it. It was, you know, less trepidation and just wanting to get in, get it done, because I know it could be done. Not to say that, you know, it's a little scary being the patient, but still, that was my attitude.
Right. So to that point, guys, how did you then finally decide to pull the trigger and go through with surgery? I imagine that you came to that at different speeds and in different ways.
Yeah, so I grew up in a relatively small town, and so, as I mentioned, even trying to get to a diagnosis took quite a bit of time, and it was quite a challenge. And so, again, tried probably every inhaler on the market. Again, nothing helped. And so, when we did finally find that doctor who, threw out that condition, and then they referred us to American Family Children's Hospital up in Madison, Wisconsin, to their thoracic surgery team. And that was, really the first time it was like, wow, like we can actually, there's something we can do about this. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I knew this was coming. Like a lot of orthopedic patients, I had had x-rays. I knew for 2 years before getting the first knee done that I was bone on the medial side. So it wasn't a question if it was going to occur, the surgery, but when. Yeah. And when I really got to the point where I was so frustrated I couldn't play at the level I wanted to play, I was in increasing pain. And then if I had any doubt 10 days before the surgery, when I went off my diclofenac sodium, I felt like I needed a walker at that point, and I knew it was time. So it was kind of a natural progression for me, and much different making the decision as a 64-year-old than an adolescent.
So we're talking a lot about teams here. So I want to ask you both about what your perception of the importance of teamwork and support systems, like physical therapy and nursing and your families and your small town and all these things. What comes to mind with that stuff?
Yeah, so definitely was very much a team effort. In terms of like my local family doctor, to the surgical team, and kind of everyone in between. I didn't require much physical therapy, but did have some as well. And even just the support of my peers, friends, family, also made the recovery process quite a bit easier.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. One comment, my father, who's passed away about 25 years ago, had bilateral knees done in Fort Wayne, and his experience compared to mine was dramatically different. For example, my father was in the hospital. I remember seeing him right after the surgery, and he was on one of these continuous passive motion machines for a couple of days. I believe he was in the hospital in Fort Wayne for 3 days, maybe 4. Then they released him to a rehab facility on the Lutheran campus for another 5 or 6 days. And he needed a village. Fast forward 25 years later, my experience was much, much different. I went to Dr. Jeff Yergler in South Bend, who has an incredible team. He's got a great outpatient facility. I went in at 7 in the morning, and I literally walked out at 2:30 in the afternoon. I did need my wife to drive me home, though, so that was a great help. And then, family getting me to and from rehab. But, we've come a long ways, and things like little things that I think made a big difference was a compression ice machine that I wore 24/7 for the first week, I think. I used very little in the way of narcotic medication, and within 6 days I was on Tylenol. Again, much different than like what my father and others that I had known over the years went through. But you do need the health, and you need the help and support from, I think, a good orthopedic team when you're going through the pre-surgery, the post-surgery, and the rehab. And then, depending on the level of care you need and your personal situation, you do need your family or some support around you.
So last question. Let's end with something happy. What is your favorite thing to do right now that probably would have been real hard or impossible for you before your operation?
So for me, definitely being able to become a mom, and again, at least kind of try to keep up with my 4-year-old daughter. Obviously, I'm sure anyone who has had children this age or been around children this age, that is not easy. But at least now I know that, like, if I'm out of breath, it's because I'm out of shape. It is not because of my sternum.
For me, two things, as you might suspect, pickleball and being able to resume playing at a very competitive level, and that's really good when you reach 70 that you can still do that. Without my knee replacements, I would not be doing that today. And like Sarah, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, 2 grandsons, and I can't imagine trying to keep up with them if I didn't have these knees today. It would be impossible. I haven't been able to figure out a cure for exhaustion when I'm with them, but the knees work fine. By the way, a lot of other things hurt, but the knees are great.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for, you have a prop.
I did. I forgot.
Yes.
So actually, Dan started, with Zimmer and Biomet, prior to having the knee replacement. I actually had the inverse experience. So after I had my bar removed, they asked if I wanted to keep it. And, I'm like, sure, why not? Cool, I guess. I'll figure out what to do with it later. So it basically went in a box. I went about my life and had an opportunity actually to join Zimmer Biomet in 2018. Thought it would be a good next step in my career. Obviously know what med devices, can do for people. About a year in, saw in an email a reference to the pectus bar and thought, man, that's really cool. Like, ZB makes pectus bars. Did some research, only ZB makes pectus bars. So I dug my bar out of that box, and sure enough, this was pre-merger, so you have the Biomet logo on here, and now it lives on my desk, which maybe is weird. I don't know. My husband, it definitely makes for an interesting topic of conversation when we have company. But really, it's a testament to the impact that we can have on people's lives. When the days are long, the times are tough. This is really just that tangible reminder of what we can do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, huge thank you to Dan and Sarah for sharing your really compelling stories, and to you as well, Dr. Weiss, for guiding such a powerful and personal conversation, including your own story as well and journey. These are the stories that stay with us and become our why. It's the reason why we push for better solutions, smarter tools, and stronger innovation. We'll now take a short 15-minute break. Take the time to stretch, connect with someone you don't know, and check out the amazing posters behind us. And we'll see you back here promptly at 2:35, where we'll dive into transformative change, manufacturing leadership, and the future of musculoskeletal ecosystem in Indiana. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone had a chance to stretch, connect. I saw a lot of great networking and connections happening, which is one of the key objectives of these kinds of events. Before we jump back in, I'd like to once again thank our incredible sponsors and partners, without whom this could not be possible. Your support not only makes today a reality, but it also drives global advancements that give Indiana our musculoskeletal leadership advantage. Let's take a moment to hear from one of today's sponsors and a great catalyst for innovation that's happening here in Kosciuszko County, Plug and Play Indiana.
I think plug and play is really one of the best things that we have seen in Indiana, especially here in the orthopedics capital of the world.
From a corporate partner perspective, we again have been connected with startups and have an opportunity through our batches to have more direct interaction with them to understand what their technology could offer us, and also providing mentorship to them and perspectives to help them accelerate their business. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
If I think about the partnership with Plug and Play, the value add for us is probably the depth of the relationship. But what's interesting is that they sell themselves as a technology incubator, but there's so much more than that. You know, I always joke, you know, once you're in the Plug and Play family, that's like the best kept secret that ever happened. For the state of Indiana, this partnership was a no-brainer. The ability of using Plug and Play's expertise and their knowledge, plugging it into the things that we do the best in the world here in Warsaw, Indiana, was a very easy thing for us to decide as a state to say, we're all in.
We just want to partner with everybody for it to be the most impactful it can be. So how do we take this globally recognizable company, the most active venture capital firm, one of the top-rated accelerators, and make it to the benefit of the state of Indiana?
They're helping us connect Indiana to the world, different than what we probably would have been able to do otherwise.
When you look at the achievements and the metrics and the incredible enthusiasm, again, not only here in the northern part of the state, but throughout the state, they've been a wonderful partner and one we hope is here for a long time.
The expertise they bring, the opportunities that they bring, our students being able to interact with startups is exposing them to so much that is out there that they now get access here in Kosciuszko County.
I think the biggest value is if you look at the total cost of care right now within the healthcare system, we're going to start having to do things different. And by using the startups and entrepreneurs of the world to actually bring in those solutions is key for us. So that was really another one of those areas of why we chose this partnership with Plug and Play.
Being able to partner with an organization like Plug and Play brings in an international, a global reach as we're looking at startup companies and really growing our economy.
I truly believe if executed appropriately throughout the state, we will have generational change and impact as Plug and Play.
I promise you, Brandon has a different suit than I do. It's just happened to be the same color. But no, Plug and Play Indiana has been a great partner, and we at BioCrossroads are honored to be partners with Plug and Play Indiana in growing the innovation ecosystem here and also at IU Lab. So now let's turn our attention to the sweeping changes reshaping orthopedics, from digital tools and personalized medicine to value-based care and integrated delivery models. Our next session was titled Transformative Changes in Orthopedics. And please join me in welcoming to the stage our moderator and longtime orthopedic senior executive and leadership team member with All In Kosciuszko, Jim Lancaster. Hallie Brinkerhoff, who's Senior Director of R&D and Innovation at Zimmer Biomet. Dr. Roman Natoli, who's Associate Professor at IU Indianapolis School of Medicine. And Dr. Kevin Otto, who's Dadain Miller, Head of the Weldon School of Biomedical Engineering at Purdue University. Turn it over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Vince. Much appreciated. So welcome, team. We'll keep Kirk's theme going and talk about the team here today. What's fun about this conversation is we get to talk about transformation. We get to talk about where you guys see things going, what you see happening in the future, from an academic research perspective, from a clinician's perspective, doing research, but also from an industry perspective. So we'll kind of break this conversation up into three parts. We want to talk a little bit about the current state. What's the current state, standard of care? Then we'll talk about some of the innovation changes you've seen. And then lastly, where collaboration fits into all this. So I always think it's interesting, we often forget in orthopedics or the med tech space about where we've been. And I always, think we can jump in and talk about patients we just heard about and see what their outcomes are, but we forget about what it took to get there. And I think people who don't know the industry forget about what we were dealing with a decade ago or 2 decades ago. So just to get started, Kevin, kind of talk to us a little bit about, from a materials perspective and a technology perspective, talk to us about what you kind of see as the standard of care, and maybe just give the audience some perspective of what are some of the challenges we've overcome in the last, decade or so.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for the invitation. First of all, perspective is a fantastic word. To put this into perspective, for me to be on stage in Warsaw talking about orthopedics is shocking. I'm not an orthopedics individual. However, I've learned fast. And in the state of Indiana, sitting in the orthopedic capital of the world, this is the second time I've been here in 4 months, 5 months. It's been really, really fun to try to learn how education and Purdue and the Weldon School of Biomedical Engineering, how we can collaborate in this space, how we can take programs that exist and jet fuel them, try to plug in with opportunities like Plug and Play, IU Lab, our opportunities in Indianapolis. What I have learned in trying to research this and understand our field, our place, I spoke with people like Todd Render, Lance Perry, had lunch with Dan Hahn. One of the shocking comments that they said repeatedly was that orthopedic success is its biggest weakness. That overall, it works really well and has for decades. Many, many decades. So trying to fix the margins, this is basic capitalism, right? Trying to race to the bottom, if you will, in terms of producing supply chain, lower costs. How can you have disruptive change in that environment is really challenging. So other meetings where we met with Ignite Therapeutics, who are innovating really rapidly in a startup situation, looking at how materials have changed in this space. Alternative joints, I think, is where I've heard a lot. It's much further than hips and knees now in that space. But also the advanced manufacturing opportunities coming from, I guess, ultimately, DePuy started where it was a material, fiber, as opposed to wood, as the innovation that started orthopedics in Warsaw. Then ultimately to metal on metal, to metal on polymer, and then advanced manufacturing to make that better. Now getting more towards craft, from craft to precision. How can you do personalized medicine in this space? So rather than having assembly line, how can you do individualized aspects? I think that's, from an outsider perspective, that's where I see the history, and then going through and seeing the Zimmer Biomet tour, it's really jaw-dropping, the scale that Warsaw is able to achieve in this space.
Yeah, and I think one thing you highlight on as you talk about perspective, and it's always making sure that when you take one step forward, you're not taking 2 back. And I think that's one thing that, as researchers, as clinicians, people have to keep in mind that they are advancing, but not necessarily, taking a step that ends up, a little bit of a stumble or a pitfall. So that's, I think in this day and age, those just aren't tolerated as well, and people expect all motion to be forward, and even lateral ones are difficult. So with that, Roman, you're a practicing orthopedic surgeon, doing research as well. Maybe just share with us some of the advancements you've seen even since you started training, in terms of where we're at with standard of care, and maybe even just talk about patient expectations.
Softball, thanks, Jim. Yeah, so, when I think about current way we practice orthopedic medicine, if you want to call that standard of care, and I've said this many times, some people in the audience have heard me say this, but we're very reactive to what happens. You know, we aren't able to prevent a lot of disease. The disease happens, and then we respond to it. I had the patient talking about his lived experience with arthritis. And then there was a reaction to the arthritis, and then a surgical procedure was performed. So if I had to sum up kind of in a broad sense, orthopedic is huge, right? But in a sense, our current standard of care is reactive. I think you asked, like, what are some things that are changing or some innovations that are happening? And that's could be a long question. I'll give you a couple of thoughts on it. One, and I promise you that none of the prior speakers and I have discussed what I was going to say, so some of the similarities, it's just kind of because the observations that we're making are demanding us to have these answers. Thinking in terms of personalized medicine. So going away from the idea that something we do fits most people to really figuring out how to land at the thing that is going to help that individual. And that kind of ties into patient expectations. That's what they're looking for nowadays, is the very kind of personalized approach and knowing that they're going to get the most optimal outcome and not necessarily an average outcome. The other thing that I think is changing kind of rapidly in the healthcare space is the move to doing more things efficiently and on an outpatient basis, which was also touched upon by the patient with the knee arthritis. You know, it happens in fracture care too, which is my predominant specialty. Things that we used to do where we might keep a patient inside the hospital are now being done same-day discharges or at most overnight stays. I guess I'll stop there. There's lots of other innovations we could talk about, but those are the two that come to mind.
Yeah, sure, that's great. Thank you. Okay, Hallie, in your career, in your tenure, you've seen lots of changes from materials to packaging changes to manufacturing processes, to different innovations. Maybe talk about some of the areas where you think have had the biggest impact. Again, it may be some things we've either taken for granted now as we think about where we are, or maybe even some of the building blocks that had to be laid first to allow us to keep advancing and innovating.
Yeah, all good points, and so much to talk about there. A lot of good innovations. Historically, as Kevin mentioned, and as you're well aware, the industry has really focused on the metal and the plastic, the implants, the design, what we're putting in the body, and there have been some fantastic advances in material science, in design, in those regards. Highly cross-linked polyethylene, vitamin E, some of the new metals and coating technologies that we have, 3D printing, all of those are fantastic innovations that have really made a difference. By and large, those implants are doing really well, as Kevin mentioned as well. A lot of those factors that we felt like our engineering minds could really figure out, we've begun to tackle. And optimize to some extent. You know, going forward, I think we need to look a little broader than just the metal and plastic. And the next areas I think we're starting to really make some headway in are things like data and gathering the data. We need to pay attention to the broader ecosystem, not just the implant, but the system it's going into, the whole care pathway that we're looking at in that regards. And, you know, explore the data, gather the data, you know, analyze the data, pre-op, inter-op, post-op, throughout the whole care pathway in order to really kind of make that next major leap in technology.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of chatter in this space. You know, data is the new currency, right? And even, you know, we think about outcomes. You know, as Kevin, you said, you know, sometimes I think in orthopedics or musculoskeletal care, you know, we can be our own worst enemy because the outcomes have for the most part, for the last probably 2 decades anyway, been very high in terms of, you know, patient outcomes. You know, Roman, talk to us a little bit about today, you know, innovation and, you know, and how innovation, and as you see it, again, whether that's site of care, different surgical techniques, it could be materials or technology, how you're seeing that impact patient outcomes. And feel free to share with us experiences where maybe, great ideas didn't necessarily translate to good clinical outcomes, and what do we learn then?
Thanks. Also a very deep question. Innovation, comes in lots of different flavors, and we do have a patient-centered, patient-always focus. Not everything we do always leads to an improved patient outcome, and I would be the first to tell you I think that's totally okay, because there's a lot of other stuff that has to go into taking care of a patient. Some of the things that have happened that I think are notable and directly do affect patients' outcome, which was mentioned, is bearing surfaces. So once we went from soft plastic to hard plastic, or what we call highly cross-linked polyethylene, the revision rates for joint replacements have substantially dropped. That wasn't something that happened overnight. That's how it happened over several decades, but that's kind of an incremental innovation where patient outcomes have been improved. But there's room for innovation. Innovation's happening in many other ways as well, I think. Sometimes whatever's happening might just make my life or a surgeon's life better inside the operating room. And while that may not be something that's directly quantifiable in terms of improving the patient's outcome, it definitely improves at the systems level how we're taking care of patients and what we're able to accomplish. I don't think it's a mystery to any of us in the room, but there's a lot of pressure in healthcare systems right now. And anything that, the innovations that we're making don't always have to necessarily be focused on an individual patient getting better, because we have to take care of our entire population and keep that in mind as we go forward.
So just as a clinician, just give us a sense of what your threshold is for that. I mean, how do you kind of set a threshold to say, okay, an incremental improvement here is okay, an incremental setback I could accept as well if it helps point me in a different direction? How do you think about that as a clinician?
I think one of the first things is, obviously making sure that it doesn't disrupt too much the current situation. We get, for lack of a better word, we're kind of set in our ways. We have a lot of work to do. We have to do it pretty expeditiously and efficiently. And so I can't give you kind of like a number to quote on how much tolerance is there, but if there's something that's truly disruptive, better also come along with a lot of improvement in the patient outcome or the cost or something else. And so you can have those little incremental innovations. As long as they don't derail us too much, we're pretty willing to try it out. But if it's going to be something big, then it better have something big at the end.
Bigger return, big risk, bigger return. Yeah. One of the things Kurt mentioned in his kind of conclusions, he kind of talked about more of a personalized approach. We hear that. We're hearing that more in the orthopedic med tech space. Holly, kind of talk to us a little bit about as we think about personalized care. From a company perspective, how does a large orthopedic, large med tech company think about delivering, instead of a bunch of widgets that get put in the same way, how do you think about delivering actually personalized care?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as Dr. Weiss mentioned earlier as well, each patient is different. Each patient is unique. The anatomy is different. The biochemistry can be different. He mentioned EOR, so mental state or disposition. All of those things can be different from patient to patient. So as we develop treatments or potential solutions for things that are going in this unique environment, we need to pay attention to that. We need to understand, whether it's trying to solve a need for, let's say, a treatment to optimize a patient prior to surgery in order to maybe prevent an infection, or maybe looking at alignments for knees. Do we need to provide a personalized alignment for that rather than a standardized alignment? There's a lot of things that go into it. And this is where I'm going to come back to that data piece, because the data is going to, the data analysis, collection, all of that is going to help us provide those optimized results.
Yeah, and then when you say data and you think about, million plus, patients a year have total knees in the U.S., and that becomes a lot of data that somebody has to crunch. But then, I don't think anybody today can turn around without hearing about AI, right? So Kevin, you're at a, I would say a world-renowned engineering institute. What is AI? How is AI going to help us in this space? And then maybe also, what are some of the watch-outs? Because not everybody wants to buy the first model of a new series of something. So how do we make sure we don't, have some setbacks that don't all move forward?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think in the opening I talked about the fact that orthopedics is stifled by its success and it needs a disruptor. There's probably not going to be a bigger disruptor than AI. To be clear, I'm not an AI evangelist. I don't actually go out and tell everybody this is how it's going to be. I'd rather say I'm an AI realist. In terms of the data, machine learning algorithms and crunching massive data, we've known how to do that for a while. It needs to be applied, and it can be. The generative AI is really what has changed so much. Probably everybody at this point is interacting with some form of generative AI almost daily. You can imagine very quickly that you have interventional imaging, maybe it's MR to get away from radiation. The surgeon is doing the imaging, there's a printer in the room, the device is designed by the AI, immediately printed, and maybe sterile conditions, and then put in. Those can, and maybe, Roman, no aside, but maybe we replace all of that with a robot that's driven by AI, right? This is not honestly that far away. It really is and is not. Where do we need to watch out for? AI algorithms, especially the generative ones, they do hallucinate. So guardrails are going to be really important. I'm not arguing for more regulation. I don't think arguing for higher regulation in Warsaw is going to make me popular. But trying to make sure that systems that are disrupting that fast, that much, are still not doing harm, right? We have to be patient first, I think, in these approaches. So some of the most fascinating things that our students are doing that we're teaching are in the design spaces of using agent-based design. You give 9 AI robots the rules of the game, and you say, go design. And they come back with 9 designs, and then if you're actually really good at it, then you have an evaluator AI that's evaluating those 9. You optimize it, you set up the optimization framework, and then it's coming back. And you may walk in the morning and have 100 different designs that you kind of get to look at, and they're scoring in different ways, and then you can turn those around. Other aspects that we're doing in our research are looking at genetic algorithms, pitching. You take those 2 best designs, and then you merge them. You also bring in immigrants and then you kill off 15 of the low-performing designs. You bring in immigrant designs for genetic diversity to the algorithm, and just keep going and going and going. And in this way, you're finding optima. If we do it, we find local optima. But if the AI does it, it can get to more global optima because it gets past the local and can find those one-off solutions that you never saw.
Yeah, I think lay people, if we're not into the AI world, you tend to put everything AI in one bucket, right? Some of it could be efficiency gains, some of it could be computational gains, some of it could be design gains, but in its own right, there's like a multidisciplinary world of AI, right? And to your point, where it's intriguing to me is think about materials development, especially as you said, Hallie, I think there's been a lot of energy in orthopedics over time looking at an alternative to hard-on-hard, whether it's metal on plastic, alternative bearings, what have you. So I think about it from soft tissue. I just imagine how many iterations of designs you could go through using AI the right way for soft tissue, which becomes really then kind of, swimming further upstream in that whole care continuum. Along those lines, Roman, one of the things I think that I've seen very exciting about our NSF grant that was submitted for the Indiana State, musculoskeletal engine is this idea of really kind of moving beyond just the treatment realm. Anybody in the orthopedic space today knows that there are drugs out there that are helping people manage their weight. As a clinician, most groups today, orthopedic groups today, have some pretty hard and fast cutoffs when it comes to patient BMI and comorbidities. So we know that there's likely patients coming into the funnel that might not have, 5 years, 10 years ago. Just how do you navigate all these different environmental elements that come together, weekly, monthly, on an annual basis that are somehow guiding how you provide care?
Poorly. And actually, I'm going to jump to that question in a second. I want to add a little bit more about AI. So excellent comments by Dr. Otto. We use AI already, so a lot of, in the clinic, we have listening devices that are helping transcribe our notes and stuff like that. Radiology is using AI actively at IU as part of their delivery of clinical services. I think one of the places AI away from manufacturing and talking about implants and stuff will be in diagnostics. Dr. Weiss showed the picture of the gene array and some imaging, and when we think about personalized medicine again and what AI might be able to do, it's combining all of that stuff. I will tell you, in talking to some of my colleagues, one of the barriers we're going to have to get over is do we really believe AI? So you're taking something complex, like I have a diagnostic algorithm for infection that's based on AI, and I try to explain it, first of all, which I probably do poorly, when maybe that's the problem. But then my colleagues are like, well, I just don't believe it. Why can't we just have a test that's like A, B, and not have to go through, all this complicated stuff that happens? And so I think there's going to be an element of education that has to take place to get around some of the AI things. Environmental stuff, weight loss, et cetera, to get back to your question there. Yeah, there's a lot of drugs out there now, and the GLP-1 inhibitors specifically are pretty good at causing weight loss. They might have some other unanticipated effects on muscle as well that we're starting to learn about. Clearly, when you think about joint replacements, which is where a lot of people's minds gravitate to when you think about orthopedics, the lower weight you are, so there are some cutoffs for that because the complication risk profile goes up substantially once you get to a certain weight or a BMI. And we also know that if you are able to lose weight afterwards or something, your chance of having a revision operation goes down as well. So I'm not aware of any evidence yet that shows if you are on a GLP-1, if that helps decrease your revision rate, but certainly being on them and getting below certain thresholds so that our risks of doing procedures are lower is going to be important.
Okay, but it is a very dynamic space right now, and I think, again, as you read the literature and you talk to orthopedic surgeons, everybody's trying to figure out what does it all mean, and to your point, losing weight would be a great thing for a potential patient to come into the funnel, but you also don't want to lose all the muscle mass that is going to be very critical for their post-operative care and rehab and what have you. So it's a very much a changing space right now, it seems.
There is no free lunch in anything that we do. There's the good side and the bad side.
Yeah. So Hallie, Kevin brought up robotics. Zimmer Biomet just recently announced acquiring a technology, autonomous robot technology. How much longer does Roman have before you guys are doing all this from somebody's iPhone someplace?
Right. Yeah, Monogram, definitely an exciting opportunity. And it opens up a lot of doors for the future. If you think about it, everyone in this room, if you were to think, what does surgery look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're all going to think autonomous. Those are the next natural steps of where we're going. Whether you saw it on Star Trek or anywhere else, that's where things are going. And they can bring a lot of benefit, I think, to to the surgeon and to the patient. So we talked about increasing efficiency and being able to do more with less. For surgeons, we've talked about decreasing the technical complexity and the cognitive workload for the surgeon so that they're able to make better decisions, giving them that data so that they can make those decisions. And then ultimately for the patient as well, especially those patients that might be in, areas of the world or areas of the country where healthcare is not as, or the quality of healthcare is not as readily available. So accessibility issues are something that can also be a benefit to autonomous.
So Roman has a couple years left yet, maybe before he has to update his CV and look at some other, or figure out how to do, things from remote, like drive a joystick and run computers that way?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Kevin, one of the things you brought up earlier as it relates to impediments to innovation, and I think anybody that's in the musculoskeletal space knows is regulation, and that's a changing dynamic out there too across the world. Markets that used to be easier to have access to, like Europe, have become more difficult with MDR and what have you. How does a community, like if we take this as a musculoskeletal community, what do you think we should be doing to kind of work together with academic centers to help make sure that we keep the regulatory burden in the right level? And Hallie, feel free to jump in and,
Yeah, that's a really important, interesting comment. I've several people that have come out of my lab work at the FDA or did until recently. And it's been interesting to see both sides of regulation. I fully appreciate the need for regulation. I also definitely appreciate how it can stifle creativity, stifle innovation. I think ultimately, like most of us, they have the patient at heart. That's where they start. Right, and I think as long as we keep that as our guiding mission in the collaboration, it resonates, right? It's still on mission. I think as long as we stay mission-based, we're rowing and growing in parallel towards the same direction, right? And that's what I've tried to convince my former students at the FDA is that I want them to prove that they're smart, and I want them to point out challenges that we have, but also that we're all on the same team ultimately, and we're working towards better products for better care. So I think that's, at least for me, I like the mission test. As long as I stay within the university mission, I'm less likely to get fired that day. And I think as long as we create collective mission, and patients seem like an easy place to start.
I agree. And in addition to the mission, I'd mentioned the relationship and partnership, that collaboration piece you mentioned. That's so important, both with the regulators as well as, with the three of our industries as well.
Yeah, well, that's a great segue into kind of the last element I'd like to cover, and that is around collaboration. And one of the things I've enjoyed in my career about orthopedics as an engineer, getting to work with a surgeon, getting to work with researchers. I mean, I would say the only piece we really don't have here would be like a hospital administration, because I think hospitals are critical as it relates to having a venue, where all of this happens. But maybe we'll just kind of go down the panel and talk a little bit about, as we bring this to a close, from a collaboration standpoint, talk about how you see collaboration, what are the most critical elements, and how do you think that's going to help you with what you think will be the most meaningful advancements going forward. So maybe, Hallie, talk about the collaboration and then the advancements in technology.
Sure. So as far as collaboration go, it's essential. We can't do what we do solely within our four walls. We need the brain trust of everyone else to help solve these challenging problems. We need to do it together, and whether it's with huge or large efforts looking at early stage, like longer term for our field elements, or even we work closely with even senior design projects, and having a few extra engineering minds tackle a problem for us as well. So we collaborate with universities in many different ways to further the mission. Yeah.
Roman?
Yeah. So thinking about that, maybe looking 10 years down the road, and what would be a big advancement in, say, precision medicine or something? So as an example, a diagnostic that will probably be based around some AI or machine learning algorithm. I'm going to potentially be the end user faced with that, with the patient in front of me, but I don't know machine learning and AI, so I'm going to have to work with Dr. Otto. But then we don't necessarily have the expertise in the commercialization process, right? So then I'm going to look to the left, and we're going to figure out how to make that a viable product. And then, as you pointed out, we are missing the hospital administrator here, but then how do we interface with that so that it actually, is allowed to be used, et cetera? So that's collaboration in a nutshell. It's going to take the 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, proverbially speaking, to sit around at events like this and at the table and have dinner, and to be able to get to those advancements that are really going to improve healthcare 10 years from now.
So in addition to the hospital administrator, first of all, you're not going to work with me for AI. You're going to work through me. I know AI people. I'm not an AI person. But in addition to the hospital administrator, I would say, we need to bring the patient here. I love the patient panel, right? And having patient-started designs is going to be really important, because they need to be part of the solution from the beginning. Closing the valley of death on any of these technologies starts and ends with the patient. What do we bring at Purdue? We're a land-grant public institution. We're large as a land-grant, science, engineering. Those are in our mission. People probably think I'm going to say robotics and AI and advanced manufacturing, but I think what maybe people don't quite appreciate about the Purdue side of the world is how good the university is at public-private partnerships. And we have these heads meetings at the dean's level, and so I have to go sit next to the mechanical engineering head and electrical engineering head and listen to all the partnerships that they have. Rolls-Royce and Cummins and Boeing, Caterpillar, AMD, Intel, and that's been what I've been trying to do for the past years, to strengthen the biomedical partnerships. It's part of our mission to be engaged across the state and deliver that economic and educational value. So trips to Warsaw, strengthening partnerships with Cook. We recently signed a big agreement with Lilly, not BME, but as a university. And so, I think that those public-private partnerships, especially at the state level, in absence of a lot of federal support in this space, this is where the state really needs to come together. And what we have been doing for the past year really is mission-aligned, perfectly mission-aligned with, I use Vince's infographic all the time. As the #1 life science exporter in the country, Indiana has a lot of things to bring to the table.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you all talk about the collaboration. I mean, it's probably the one thread, that's or the one building block foundation as it relates to innovation, because none of it's going to happen, right, if there isn't that high level of collaboration. I think one thing that I've gotten to appreciate about, as I've gotten to know more about like Plug and Play as a technology incubator, you go out there to one of their summit meetings, and I would encourage everybody to do that. It's just a great environment. And you talk to people there, and people don't see what we would call problems. They just see opportunities, right? They see opportunities to build things and create new things. And I think what we've tried to cover here today, as we think about how we will continue to drive a transformation in orthopedics, is we've cleared a lot of problems out of the way over the last several decades. But clearly, from a patient perspective, from a clinician perspective, with technology coming into it, we're far from done. in terms of where the innovation comes. And so I think, as we think about that, hopefully what the audience takes away is there's tons of opportunity out there for people that want to make an impact, and in a big way, right? A meaningful impact and some very meaningful evolution still for this orthopedic/medtech space. So thank you all very much for your engagement. Thank you for your insights. And I'd like to ask the audience to thank our panel for their brilliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you to the panelists. That was a great discussion. We're going to shift our focus. We're going to focus on manufacturing and talent development. So manufacturing has always been the heart of Warsaw's musculoskeletal leadership. It's where innovation meets precision and where solutions for patients around the world begin, as we've kind of discussed so far. The work being done here doesn't shape just our local economy, but it sets the standard for the entire industry, and we're pretty proud of it, as you can imagine. The next conversation is about the future of that work and the people who are helping define it. Joining us for the future of manufacturing are Dr. Amaru Aweshi. He's the professor and endowed chair at the IU Kelley School of Business. We also have Brian Huderick, president, CEO, and co-founder of Ignite Orthopedics. Laurent Ellenrider, manufacturing director at Medartis USA, and my colleague, Dr. Alan Decker, vice president of operations and engagement with FrameWORX, who's going to lead our discussion today. Alan, let's bring the team on and let's get started.
Thank you, Ryan. And before we start, do me a favor. Everybody stand up, stretch, take a deep breath. We've heard some great stuff, but we are definitely building to a crescendo. I'm not going to say we're saving the best for last, but we're building to a crescendo. And we've got some good stuff going on here. So great, thanks. Have a seat. So the last panel kind of talked about the dream and design phase of product development, and we're going to focus on the build phase as we look at manufacturing, and it's an exciting time. Many of us in this room got the opportunity to tour one of 4 industry partners this morning, so Instrumental Machine and Development, Precision Medical Technologies, Zimmer Biomet, and one more. Paragon Medical. So we got to see up close and personal the amazing things that are being done right here in the Orthopedic Capital, new technologies that are being embraced, and just the passionate commitment to quality, safety, and getting it right every time. So it was pretty fun. So I just want to say thank you to those partners as well. So let's kick off here. Amaru, as a scholar of sustainable manufacturing practices, let's start with where we're at and where we've been. So Indiana is a longtime leader when it comes to pharmaceutical and life sciences manufacturing, but is our technology keeping pace with other leading life sciences states and countries?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. It's great to be here. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Yes, we are a leader, but you know what the problem is when you're the leader, everybody's gunning for you. Right? Everybody wants to be the #1 state, the #1 country, and get this, manufacturing center of excellence. And so I'll give you a sports analogy, right? When you win the Super Bowl, you take the victory lap, you take a break, but you go back next year and you kind of go on to fundamentals. And if we think we're just going to rest on our laurels, we're mistaken, right? Everybody that's gunning for us is aiming to be 10, 15% better than us next year. So guess what? We got to be 10, 15% better than where we are now just to stay competitive, just to be at the front. And I think that's the important thing. Let's look at what's happening in manufacturing now. We're truly kind of going towards this digitization, right? We talked about AI, everybody's talking about AI, but it's a different manufacturing that we have now. And we need to make sure we have the right asset base. And the most important asset base is the employee on the front line who's actually manufacturing that product. How do we equip them? How do we empower them? How do we leverage the new data? How do we help them make the product better? And that's what we need in this new tech. You mentioned keeping pace. We need to make sure, how can we continue to upskill our current people? How do we get the new generation excited about manufacturing so they can kind of get into manufacturing and really keep pace? So we can, again, we can't keep pace. We got to be ahead so we can continue to be the leader.
Great, thank you. And Brian, as an engineer, an entrepreneur, and a design firm founder, what are Indiana's biggest opportunities when it comes to advancing our manufacturing capabilities and taking a bigger role in leadership in the life sciences? And how does this translate into the world of orthopedics and the treatment of MSK conditions?
Yeah, so I think short answer is double down on the orthopedic capital of the world, Warsaw, Indiana. I know you said Indiana, but man, Warsaw is where I was raised, and I have a love for this community, and what we do here is truly amazing. But you know, we enjoy the highest concentration of orthopedic manufacturing in the entire world in one place. So I think we really need to double down on that and build and expound upon that. Stay at the, as Emro said, not rest on our laurels, but really stay on the cutting edge and be continuously advancing upon that technology. And some examples could be one of my passions, additive manufacturing, continuing to grow in that space. Automation and production, which I know we're doing already, but there's so much more to learn there. And then again, speed to market, I think, is critically important, not only in the prototype phase, but also in production.
Yeah, we got to see some of that amazing additive manufacturing at Paragon today in their 3D printing building, and pretty amazing stuff, especially when it comes to custom devices, yeah. So Laurent, you direct manufacturing at Medartis USA, and you also have had unique experiences in the industry in Switzerland, your home country. So how do you think our companies here in Indiana compare with what you've lived elsewhere, and what key enhancements are needed? And you can be honest, so fire away.
Fire away, okay. So I think Indiana has nothing to be shy about. The ecosystem is very potent to lots of innovation to come, not just in product development, but also in manufacturing. And somehow it makes me think about the watchmaking valley in Switzerland. It's a very highly concentrated area with a couple of heavy hitters, your ZBs, your J&Js, but in watchmaking, I guess. And you have a network of suppliers who feed into the whole system, which I believe is the real heartbeat of a community like I saw in Switzerland, and I believe is also the true power of what I'm seeing around here. I think it's also true for outside of the county, outside of the city of Warsaw. There are so many interesting companies around here who make and build their own stuff. And regarding key enhancements, I'm going to join your input about automation. That's for sure one thing that I see. Especially in healthcare, we might be a little bit frightened of change. Once the process is set in place, don't touch anything, make it run for 20 years and get the money back. I believe with a good change process and some opportunities there as well, that automation is implementable. If it makes sense, you don't have to automate everything. And that's something I truly believe that we need to focus on more. Then one more point that I have is train to specialize. Don't just get button pushers in your companies. Get people who can solve problems. At the machine, can solve problems when they're designing something. It's all the way through the chain from the design to the manufacturing process. Get people to solve problem.
So you mentioned automation, and one of the areas we're seeing some growing automation in is in the finishing or polishing stages of device manufacturing. And do you think they'll eventually replace the artisan, that manual polisher who kind of combines art and science to do their craft, or is there going to be a place for both?
I think in the end you need someone who programs the robot. So it's kind of chicken and egg problem.
Yeah. If I can build on that, I think we trivialize the importance of that person, right? any AI model needs data, and it needs training, and it's that person, those decades of experience, right? Milling that knee, the feel, the polish, the look, the vibration he feels in his hand as he's milling
or her hands,
or whatever they feel. That individual has so much knowledge, and we need that expertise, that value, that knowledge in training these future systems, right? You're not going to get an automatic robot to just mill based on your opinion or my opinion. It's these decades, so you're going to get centuries from, all their experience. How do you get that and use that to train the new system? And I think that's where we're going to see.
Yeah, very good. So, Amra, we're going to lead off with you, but Laurent and Brian, feel free to weigh in as well. You've been part of and studied manufacturing all over the world and in numerous sectors. So who's doing this work really well? And what can life sciences learn from other sectors? And is there a sector you'd consider a gold standard?
Yeah, I'm not going to pick one specific sector. I'd like to think about three. I think from three different sectors we can get three different values. Fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG. I think they've got a perfect pulse on understanding what's happening across the entire supply chain, where the innovations are, and this speed to market, this transition from what the customer wants to getting the product out. I think that MedTech can learn and use that. I think the aerospace industry, this idea of supply chain provenance, knowing the entire product, where it is, what's happening with the product at all the time. This idea of zero defect culture, right, and launch safety control. You need that in MedTech and healthcare to make sure that's delivered to the customer at the end. And then finally, the lean principles we see in manufacturing, the Toyotas of the world. How do we bring that Six Sigma mentality to not only the product innovation, but the process innovation? And I think, a lot of us think innovation ends as soon as the product is manufactured. No, I think there's a lot of opportunity for innovation after it leaves the manufacturing plant until it gets into the patient, and then what happens after the patient. I think the last panel kind of really teed that up really nicely.
Great. Either of you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so I'm a R&D guy, so I'm going to go a little bit more in the design space, but I think it does relate. When you look at aerospace and you look at some of the software that they're utilizing, knowing the loads in certain parts of an aircraft, and then you put this into a software that can create a shape that produces a structure that can withstand those loads and still be light and very cost effective. Man, wouldn't that be cool in the orthopedic space as well? And I know there are some tools that we use today, but ultimately something that can really utilize like our bone banks that we have, that these big companies have, and knowing bone density and joint loads and so forth, and then producing an optimum implant, and at the same time driving costs down is pretty exciting to think about.
I'm going to join you guys on aerospace. I have one picture in my mind that pops up, and that's the iteration process throughout over time from the Raptor engines at SpaceX. I encourage everybody to have a look at that picture. It's absolutely amazing. They start off, you don't really understand that it's an engine, and at the end, 10, 15 years later, there's maybe one or two cables connecting components within that engine, and you just see how much time commitment they have put into to make that better. So I truly believe that they have leveraged some technologies like 3D printed the right way and 3D printed parts the right way, and that's something that we can follow them on.
Just sticking on aerospace, I've worked with Airbus for some time, and I love your example of using it on the product, but it's also across the supply chain. The software and understanding exactly where products are, how you leverage that across your entire supply chain. I think that's definitely a value here. That's something we can bring in.
Mm-hmm. Good. So, Laurent, AI is critical to technology. We've heard that in other panels, and life sciences is no exception. So how do you view Indiana's position regarding AI and continuous manufacturing? Are there more things we should be doing?
So it's hard for me to give you a feedback on the whole state of Indiana, but what we can do for sure is make sure that we understand the potential of the AI tools in advanced manufacturing. I think most of us who are sitting on the shop floor the whole day use traditional Gen AI tools that anybody else would use, but we don't really understand yet what the potential is. So what I would love to see is more of an exchange base on people who have used these tools and can kind of show to others what they could do with. I think there is a great potential in terms of programming. We have used one tool at MidArtist to do that for patient-matched devices. It's been working great. It does 80% of the work. The 20 last percent, you'll need your top-notch programmer to be looking at the code because there is some stuff to correct.
And there's also the information security piece of that we need to be mindful of as well, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, you want to make sure your IP stays at home.
That's right. Either of you fellas want to weigh into that as well?
I'm terrified to talk about AI after Kevin Otto sitting in the seat, but I certainly am not an expert in that field. But I do know that it's using existing knowledge, right, to build upon. And when you look at what the data that all of these companies in town are sitting upon. The robotics, the PLM systems, the vision systems, and so forth that are used every day, and gathering all of that data, I think it's exciting to think about what the future could hold.
And I can give you a kind of a quick snapshot. I agree, Brian, it's data, it's all based on data, but the future of preventative maintenance is here. I didn't think I'd see it. We see it now where we're small, relatively inexpensive changes or sensors we place on, getting data directly from the PLC.
Before the breakdown.
Before the breakdown, we can predict, right? And it's just absolutely phenomenal. If you've ever used a Gen AI tool to write a couple of sentences out, just imagine that same Gen AI tool being able to tell you, here's what we see on the vibration, here's where we expect, here's the visual inspection of the product coming off at the end of the line. We can prevent a lot of defects.
That sounds exciting. Amaru, how does MSK Orthopedics compare to other life sciences sectors like pharmaceuticals and when it comes specifically to advanced manufacturing?
Yeah, I'd like to again go back to the analogy of the product and process, right? I think you mentioned SpaceX. I'll use Tesla as the example, right? We had the electric vehicle as the innovation, and they went through, what Elon called production hell. And it's this translation of a wonderful idea into how do we actually make it? How do we make it consistently? How do we make it top quality? And how does it work for everybody? Eli Lilly is going through that, the growing pains. Everybody talked about GLP-1. We saw that transition where they're building out smart manufacturing. They're building out the ecosystem here in Indiana. And I think that's something similar we need to start seeing in MSK. How do we transition to making this product that we've made for a while? We know it's not broken. Why change it? Well, you need to change it to remain competitive, right? Everybody's gunning for us. How do we stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah. We used to call orthopedics an inflation-proof industry. We don't know, though. The future may paint a different picture for all of us. Anybody else want to comment on that question? No? Okay, moving on. Laurent, you're involved in INCAP, which is the statewide initiative led by the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation, which aims to implement a statewide apprenticeship program in Indiana inspired by the Swiss model, something you know a little bit about. So tell us more about that progress and what the Swiss in particular are doing in this space that we can model.
Sure, so this is a very important topic for me, so thanks for the question. So the Fairbanks Foundation is kind of leading the charge on that topic with the help of BioCrossroads, Connexus, and other partners along the way. And I truly believe that this is kind of the missing stone in the whole construct of what I've seen here. So the Swiss very early on recognized the need to have a standardized pathway for trades. Standardized for me means that you have the same understanding of what the skill set is once you're done with that apprenticeship program. And the goal that we have as I'm going to call us a huge team is to make sure that we can implement something similar here in the state of Indiana. Other states are interested as well. We've heard from the Fairbanks Foundation that California was interested in doing something similar. I believe Colorado as well. And so where we are at today is that ITAs, talent associations, industry talent associations have been formed, and their goal is to map out some trades or some jobs and to prepare a plan on how these jobs are going to get taught, not just in school, but hands-on in the industry. And those plans are built by industry partners, so it's not something that is made on the bench of a university or on a school, but it's with the help of these partners and the industry people. A program is being mapped out for us to implement by hopefully middle of next year.
And you bring a really interesting perspective to that work because you've lived that system, you're a product of that system, but now you're living and working in the US. So from your vantage point, what's going to be the US's biggest, or what's going to be Indiana's biggest challenge in doing it as well as the Swiss do? What do we have to get over?
The biggest challenge that I see today in Indiana is decentralization of infrastructures and groups. I think the Fairbanks Foundation has solved that problem very well, but I believe a lot of people want to do a lot of good things. I think that's something that is truly inspiring here in Indiana, probably in most of the US. But you have to make sure, if you're following a common goal of implementing something like this that is quite complex to do, that you get everybody aligned on what the real need is. You get enough support from industry partners. We're not going to do it alone. So if you guys have any ties with or are in the industry, please check it out. It's absolutely phenomenal, and we need really any help that we can get.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap or easy. It's going to be a long haul, but it could be revolutionary. Yeah. That's right. Thank you. Amru, partnerships between industry and academia often fuel ideas and opportunities that benefit everyone. We've seen some good examples of that today. Are Indiana's assets being leveraged at the highest level?
I think so, but I think we could be doing so much more, right? You look at some states like North Carolina, Massachusetts, they're doing a phenomenal job of this industry-academia collaboration, and I think Indiana is just starting down that path. I'll give you two kind of points I think that are of value. Let's look at our universities, IU, Purdue, Notre Dame, Grace. We're graduating phenomenal talent, and they're leaving the state, right? They're going to the coasts. And so how can we showcase this immense opportunity that we have here in Indiana, and why are they not staying here? And so how can we bring that more? And then second, this collaboration on research. A lot of us think it's, oh, there's some technology that came out of the university, how can we commercialize that? Yeah, that's a step. I think the more important thing we need to be talking about is, what does a true partnership look like? How can we leverage what academia has in industry? I think we've done, I know at IU we've done some great projects with IUH, with Zimmer Biomet. How can we do that across the entire stream of people? And you know, Laurent, you mentioned Switzerland and the Watch Valley. We talk about Silicon Valley. I don't want us to be the Silicon Valley of MedTech. I want us to be MedTech Valley, right? Where they know that this corridor between Indianapolis and Warsaw is where the innovation is. So if somebody wants to be involved in that innovation, that's where they end up coming. And so I study that. I care a lot about that innovation. And so how do we build that center of excellence between Warsaw and Indianapolis and really have this be the destination? I want not only to keep our current talent, I want to bring talent in here, because this is where people will be excited to deliver on that innovation.
Yeah. As a almost 40-year resident of this area, I can say that's true, but yet that kind of growth and change is challenging for some. It's going to mean we have to think about our community in a different way, and we're going to have to be welcoming and embracing of diverse ideas, diverse people, and diverse opportunities, and I hope we're ready for it. Yeah, thank you. It's a good challenge. Brian, we've heard a little bit about personalized medicine, personalized manufacturing. So how deeply is personalized medicine embedded into the process of manufacturing orthopedics? And how is personalized medicine, such as the uniqueness of patient joints and injuries, handled at the manufacturing end? We know that receiving healthcare reimbursement can also be challenging with custom devices. So how are manufacturers addressing those kinds of challenges when it comes to personalized medicine?
Yeah, I think you could do a case study on Conformis. Some of you might be familiar with the company that built their model on manufacturing custom implants for every patient. They were largely using subtractive manufacturing for that. There was a long time period between when the patient got a CT scan to when the operation occurred. That company didn't end up doing so well, but the idea really resonated with patients and surgeons, and ultimately, that's what you really want is an implant that's just like what you had, right? So
without a 12-week lead time.
Exactly. So when you look at PSI solutions today, it's largely moved to 3D printing, which makes a whole lot of sense. I think there's still a lot of advancement in that area that can occur as far as time and cost. At the end of the day, the price pressures from hospitals are cutting down the margins for ortho device manufacturers every single year. So this type of model can be challenging. So I think you've got to look at technology and say, how is 3D printing and potentially binder jet and what comes after that make a part for a patient and then get it into that surgeon's hands in a fraction of the time that it takes today. I know some hospital systems have 3D printers in their hospital today, like HSS was pioneering something of that sort. So I think there's a lot of advancements that can occur to deliver that solution.
So would you say 3D printing is an example of the future is here, and it's now, and it's not going away?
I think it's a version of the future, yeah. I absolutely believe in what you can do with that has really changed the game in orthopedics.
Yeah. Thank you. Laurent, manufacturers also innovate new products, and we might go further to say that it's critical that they innovate new products. So how do new medtech inventions such as smart implantables or chip-enabled devices affect capacity and the ability to meet the needs of all customers? And Brian, you feel free to weigh in on this one too.
So it's a pretty broad question. So what I'm gonna say here is probably that we will need a lot of flexibility in the supply chain. Again, coming to that comment I made before about having processes in place for a while and making sure that they deviate the least from how they were validated is kind of what makes us successful, but also what is our Achilles heel. So making sure that we have the flexibility here to getting these new technologies in the building, giving our manufacturing engineers the freedom to test with them and coming to a good 80% first draft of how the process should look like is critical for any type of newer implantology or implant system that we want to put on the market, I think, across the board for any industry. That is a true thing. But maybe, Brian, you have more experience in that field.
Not really. But I'd say, one observation is, I think in years past, the Ortho Capital has made metal and plastic in past years. You can definitely see in the last decade or so the diversification in the bag of OEMs to the point where they're now calling themselves medtech companies, not orthopedic companies. So it's crazy how many bolt-on applications are being added. I think that's fueled largely by acquisition. You're seeing a lot of these startups that have these bolt-on technologies that are just getting scooped up and added and supporting the metal and plastic space, so to speak. I think, concentrating on Warsaw, of course, I think further diversification of our skill set and what we do here is pretty critical and essential if we want to really maintain that stranglehold as the medtech capital.
Very good. All right, rapid fire. I'm going to ask each of you to respond to this question in 1 or 2 sentences. What's missing that would make our successful sector even more successful? Amru?
I think this drive for innovation, when we talk about reshoring manufacturing or growing the manufacturing base, it's not this manufacturing we had here in the 1980s. It's a complete different mindset shift, and we need leaders that understand that and talent that can execute on that.
Probably going to see you coming here, but solid apprenticeship program. And to Amru's point, which I fully agree with, I think if we want to attract talents also from elsewhere, the process to get talents here is quite cumbersome. Getting it simplified is for sure going to help the community here also thrive with external talents. So I'm a bit biased, but I think speed to market with an elegant solution really is what wins. So I know a lot of the larger OEMs can struggle with getting something fast to market that to really win in this ever-changing environment. So small startups, creating really elegant solutions and doing it very, very quickly, and then the opportunity for that technology to be acquired, I think will keep this area going and will keep the fuel burning for not just mid-size and large companies, but also with startups.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. Well, let's give them a hand. Thank them for their time and expertise. And I will turn the mic over to Ryan and our final panel as we look to the future of the Ortho Capital.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks to the panel. Very, very good, very thoughtful information there. One thing that we're going to do here really quickly is we want to, let me just get my notes here. We want to take a moment to hear from our thought leaders behind much of this, and that's the Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health. We've got a short video, and then we'll get the panel up for the next discussion.
At the Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health, we believe movement is life, and improving musculoskeletal health transforms lives. Our vision is bold, to become the world's leading center for musculoskeletal research, clinical care, and education. We're building a future where discovery meets impact, where science translates into better health. In research, we're expanding our funding portfolio. We're recruiting top talent and launching transformative programs. From AI-powered diagnostics to regenerative medicine and precision orthopedics, we're creating a pipeline of innovation.
Through IU Lab and partners like Generator and Plug and Play, we can accelerate research breakthroughs, tapping into Indiana's unique life sciences ecosystem. This is the place to develop next-generation solutions. Clinically, we're building a destination for advanced musculoskeletal clinical trials. Our FitCore delivers functional bone and muscle testing with genetics to predict injury and disease. And soon, we'll expand these services across the entire state. Between research, screening, and access, these efforts will improve outcomes and extend health span of Hoosiers across all of Indiana.
In education, we're shaping the next generation of musculoskeletal leaders, emphasizing translational impact, industry partnerships, and career development. Our mentoring programs and exchange initiatives are cultivating a vibrant community of future leaders.
At the ICMH, we're not just about advancing science, we're about improving lives.
That was fantastic. So I'm going to welcome up the next panel, and we're going to talk about a broader view. So what is Indiana looking to do? What are we looking to our Indiana musculoskeletal leadership to become over the next decade? That involves strategies, investments, and collaborations like we've never seen before. So this conversation is going to be pretty exciting. We got a great panel here. We're joined by Dr. Melissa Cassina, Director of Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health at the IU School of Medicine. We've got Brandon Knoll, Director of Plug and Play Indiana. We've also got Representative Craig Snow, District 22 Indiana House of Representatives, and Jim Lancaster, who was on previously, Orthopedics Executive Leadership Team, all in Kosciuszko. Team, thanks for joining. So to kick us off, Melissa, Indiana has numerous assets that comprise the leading life sciences state, including leading research universities, top research and manufacturing companies, and entrepreneurial know-how. But we're all connected. What pieces might be missing?
Thank you for the question, and thank you everybody for coming today. I'm really excited about what our state can do if we all come together and lean in. So as Ryan was saying, and as you've heard today, Warsaw, Indiana is the orthopedic capital of the world. It has a lot of great assets. ICMH, or the Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health, for which I direct, is comprised of more than 125 musculoskeletal researchers from across the state. Although it's based at IU, it's not just IU, it's Purdue, it's Notre Dame, it's Ball State, it's Marian University. It can be anybody who studies musculoskeletal health. And then we have Eli Lilly. They actually developed the first bone-forming osteoporosis drug. And now, of course, they're interested in muscle regeneration and a whole host of other things. And so if we all come together and we connect a somewhat disconnected ecosystem, we all have our strengths, but we need to come together, we need to lean in, and then we can do great things and transform musculoskeletal health.
Yeah, that's right. Jim, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think, one of the things we talked about earlier, and we've talked about kind of on our team, is if you think about where we are as the orthopedic capital of the world, it's all about treating a disease, right? I think one of the things that's very promising about where this musculoskeletal engine can go is this idea of detection and prevention, and get us way, way further upstream in terms of the care continuum. And to your point, Melissa, we have Lilly, we have Cook, we have Roche Diagnostics. I mean, we have all of these world-class jewels that, as you put them all together, create a whole different kind of ecosystem than what we've ever seen before.
Yeah, good, thank you. And I'm gonna throw some numbers here. Melissa, this one's for you. So you and your team, we've been working toward a 10-year NSF grant, the engine, that will enhance STEM learning for more than 7,000 middle school and high schoolers here across the Hoosier State, train more than 1,900 people, launch 85 companies, bring 30 products to market, file 200 patents, create 2,650 jobs, with a total economic impact of $583 million. So where do we stand with this? And talk to us a little bit about the impact that this could have on Indiana and the ecosystem as we look forward.
Yeah, so thank you. I don't know how many of you in the audience are aware. I think a lot of you are, but maybe not everybody. But it was 15 months ago that we began this journey of submitting the NSF engine application. We are now a semifinalist. We had a great discussion with the NSF just a couple of weeks ago. We did really well. I hope that maybe the end of September, beginning of October, I can share that we'll hopefully be a finalist, but we don't know at this point, and what we need is anybody who isn't a partner. This is a time for you to contact me. Go to our booth behind there, pick up a card, register, become a partner, because this is about all of us, about the ecosystem. Anything we can do better if we do it together. So come and join us in transforming musculoskeletal health.
You should all clap for that. It's a lot of work it's going to take. Thanks.
Yeah, many of us that have been around the table and a part of the conversations, Melissa doesn't like to take the credit, but she's the leader in pushing us along and doing a fantastic job with it. So we thank you for that. Jim and maybe Craig, from an industry perspective, how would a grant like this enhance what's already happening here, in Indiana, but specifically here in Warsaw in the orthopedic capital?
Well, I mean, obviously this would be huge for us. As excited as I am to see us potentially be a finalist and actually get this grant, I'm also scared from a state perspective. We have to grow. We're always following industry. We're always following business. We need more housing. We need better infrastructure. All of those things come into play in the State House. That's usually the discussions I get into. But with a grant like this, it really elevates it. I mean, we're already on the map, let's face it. And I'm going to be biased. I grew up here. I worked at Zimmer Biomet for 20 years. I'm very biased for the orthopedic industry. And we're already on the map, but something like this would just completely put that, we would skyrocket. And so I'm really excited about this. Melissa knows I'll do anything I can, any letters I can write to promote it. So I'm really excited about it, but I'm also a little nervous.
Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things that often gets in the way of something like this broader ecosystem we're talking about actually coming together is how do you create the right infrastructure? How do you make it so that, you know, you get IU, Purdue, Notre Dame, Grace, Ball State all working together? How do you do it such that you can get, you know, Lilly, who's focused on pharmaceuticals, Roche Diagnostics, you know, Cook Medical, Zimmer Biomet to come together? And to me, it's the infrastructure, right? It's creating a playing field where everybody feels equitable, where everybody feels valued, where everybody feels like their own intellectual property, and maybe then the collective intellectual property is all going to be protected. So to me, I think the biggest thing the grant does is gives you the financial support to create that infrastructure that otherwise you're probably not going to get those other constituent components to chip into to be able to drive.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's called the engine, but I think it's the fuel that's going to light the engine that we've already got going, right? So, Jim, innovation's life-changing. We kind of talked about that. That's the theme a little bit today. When used in the right way, how do we move from innovation to training healthcare professionals to use new devices? Obviously, that's cutting-edge procedures in an optimum way, and we feel like insurers are willing to pay for that?
Yeah, I do. I think I go back to what one of the things Kevin said earlier is that, you know, this, you know, musculoskeletal space, we're kind of a victim of our own success. And I think one thing we have to do is we probably have to do a better job early on with getting clinical data. I mean, orthopedics, you know, if we're honest with ourselves, hasn't always been the most ripe in terms of, you know, designs and advancements being based on, you know, completely grounded, solid clinical evidence, a little different than more pharma or cardio, you know, cardio is. So I think one thing we have to do is make sure we're laying that foundation for the clinical data to drive some of these decisions. And then I think as we look at taking that very solid foundation and putting these technologies on it to you know, evolve the standard of care, I think that's what becomes, you know, impactful. And you know, the hope is, you know, 20 years ago, if you would have been in a forum like this in orthopedics, you'd still be talking about things like osteolysis and, you know, loose knees or loose hips or joints wearing out because the polyethylene wasn't any good. Well, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about robotics, smart technology, and AI. So, you know, hopefully that's, you know, the future generation's challenge to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Brandon, we're ready to do batch 3 in September, correct? So excited about that. We're going to talk about, Jim mentioned it, AI. So how much has the sector already embraced AI and innovation as you're seeing come through your funnel and pipeline in manufacturing, and what more is needed?
Well, if you're going to start a startup, just put AI at the end of it, and you're already going to be shortlisted for venture capital dollars. It seems like that's where everyone wants to invest. I mean, for us, again, I think just to level set, Plug and Play is in 63 locations, 27 countries. We operate 25 industry verticals. We run an accelerator here in Warsaw, Indiana. We have batches that come through twice a year. We're launching a new location in Indianapolis as part of the IU Lab initiative. We're running the Life Tech Accelerator with our friends at BioCrossroads from a programmatic standpoint. We're the only med tech location in all of those verticals, or all those places around the world, is right here in Warsaw, and the only life science location will be in Indianapolis. And so what we're seeing from a startup perspective, one, we work close with industry, and industry wants technology. And if you have anything technology related, AI is a component of that. So it's on the predictive healthcare side of things. It's, you know, how do you go from this idea in drug discovery to get all the way to human trial? Can you leverage an AI startup to actually do a lot of that legwork? So for us, AI is everywhere, AI is everything. We just launched a Center of AI Excellence in San Jose. We want to launch a Center of AI Excellence in Pharmaceuticals and Manufacturing here in Indiana. It's something that's a focus of Plug and Plays, and it's where we're, I mean, candidly, I think in the last 3 months, we've made 10 investments, all of them in AI startups in all different industries, because a lot of those technologies are applicable across multiple industries. So what's happening in supply chain can also be the same thing that can happen in mobility or even happen in medical device.
Sure, for sure. Jim, anything to add?
No, I just think, you know, as I mentioned before, when you go out to some place like Sunnyvale, California, and you sit through a plug and play summit, you realize, you know, you think the world's this big, and it's actually like this big when it comes to what's out there. And I think it's, you know, it's this AI is this generation's, you know, figuring out where, you know, how many years ago was the goal to have, you know, Apple or Microsoft's goal was to have a computer on everybody's desk. You know, I mean, you know, there were people that laughed at that, right? And you look at it now, and we have more computing power in our phone than most computers did back then. So I think AI is this generation's version of that, and it's incumbent upon all of us to figure out what it looks like, what it means, and how do we most efficiently and effectively use it.
And I think the wild thing is, if you look at AI a year ago to AI today, it's vastly different. And so, like, what's it going to be 12 months from now? And I think everybody's trying to learn on the fly, and that's here in Indiana. It's also in Silicon Valley. So just recognize everybody's kind of in the same boat. We tend to be later adopters in Indiana to what they do out in Silicon Valley, but it's ever changing. And so every, you know, multinational Fortune 500 company now has some chief AI whatever on the executive team trying to direct how that company is going to leverage AI in what they're already doing from a process standpoint, from an innovation standpoint, from an R&D standpoint. So if you're not embracing it, if you don't have ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the programs on there, do a crash course. Learn how to use it. It will make you more efficient. It will make you more effective. But I'm worried about the personal piece of it. Don't let it kind of consume you and be your person. Still be yourself while leveraging it.
You know, it's interesting, Brandon, you bring that up. Actually, this morning I was brushing my teeth, and I asked Chat, I said, what's Brandon Knoll going to wear today? And it said white shoes and a vest.
So I think everybody needs to know, and I'm only saying this because Drew sent me a message as I walked up on stage. I'm a Huntington University alum. Huntington wears green, and I'm standing here in Grace College, and he said, don't ever wear that green on my stage again.
We'll let it slide this time. Next time you're getting pushed off. Craig, obviously we're seeing some tighter budgets on the state and federal levels. How do you believe the legislature will balance keeping budgets in line while supporting this innovation and research and inventions to improve the future?
Well, I'm a big believer, like I said earlier, is business has got to drive government. We need to budget accordingly. And I'm kind of the odd man out down there. I don't call myself a politician, but the speaker reminds me I have a voting record, so technically I'm a politician. But I think like a business mind, and the money's still green. So what I've been trying to do is convince the Ways and Means group, which I'm the vice chair of, and our governor's office to think about the dollars that we have available to us as an investment, and we need to invest it where we're going to get the best return on that investment. Last year, this past April, we came under a lot of scrutiny with some issues we had in the state of Indiana. We had a $2.4 billion deficit. We had 2 weeks to fix it before we ended session. And we can't have any more budget years like that. And so we're pushing for more revenue. We need more businesses to come out, more innovators to come out with new products. If you're not from Indiana, please have dinner here, stay all night here. Tomorrow buy a car, possibly a house, come back.
He is a politician.
I am, yeah.
I'm not a politician.
But, you know, it's one of those things where I was talking to president of Ivy Tech this morning, And I said, I figured it out. Indiana's in the business of building widgets. It just happens to be human resources. And so what we've got to do is align ourselves with, obviously, K through 12, but then the higher ed. What does it look like to train our Indianans to work here and stay here? And so we've got to have the schools go out to the businesses, figure out what is the curriculum. They got to go back and train those students so that they have a job when they're done. And so that's the collaboration, and I'm really excited to see, the universities here. I'm a Grace alumni, we wear red, but that is so critical to the state. Is we've got to start focusing on where we spend the money. And we don't have a money issue. We have an investment issue. And so there's money there. I'm lobbying to bring it back here to build on orthopedics, med tech, and musculoskeletal. So I don't know, I rambled there. I'm a politician, so.
A good one. He's a good one.
Brian, if you don't mind, I might want to jump in on something. And thank you for all you're doing for the state and for the area. But what he's talking about is what we're saying in the engine. It's all about use-inspired. So the NSF wanted use-inspired R&D, but we took it a step further. It's not just about the R&D. It's use-inspired workforce. It's use-inspired for everything that we're trying to do. How can we bring everything to the state, but can we talk to the patient? I mean, these were some of the threads that were woven earlier today. We talked to the patient. We talked to the surgeon. We talked to the clinician. We talked to the engineer. We talked to the different companies, because we need to understand what they need and how can all of us together come up with that great solution at all different levels.
That was great, and that's exactly why you're great at leading us and keeping us going along. So, Jim, you've seen a tremendous growth in the sector in your career. What are some learnings from other countries maybe you've seen as you've worked abroad, or industries that could take Indiana's musculoskeletal sector to the next level?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting having lived outside the U.S. I mean, in the U.S., we kind of beat up our healthcare system a lot, and while it's not perfect, I would say in my experience, it's still better than most. So, healthcare reform is something that I still think has to be focused on, that will help drive innovation and putting the right checks and balances in place, from that standpoint. I think, as I think about the healthcare area, I think about, where we are as a medical device, as in orthopedics or in med tech, as a medical device space. And I think while you have such affinity for what happens, you think about one patient, there's one patient, one procedure, one surgeon helping them. We still have a long ways to go as it relates to where the technology folds into this. You think about, cardiac and, pacemakers and you think about even the neuro space and some of the things they're doing with implantables. And so I think that's, if we're critical of ourselves, I think that's the kind of mindset we should really challenge ourselves, is how do we take the right application of some of those novel technologies and truly drive it into the procedures as they are today. Now, I think our opportunity, back to what we were talking about earlier, is to also get out of this mindset of just treatment, because that's, there's certain population of patients that suffer from musculoskeletal disease. But going back to what the guys were talking about, the manufacturing and the predictability. I mean, imagine if we had that same level of predictability, that we would know that in 6 years, if Craig doesn't change what he's doing, he's going to need a knee replacement, or Brandon's going to need a shoulder replacement because he's not the pickleball player he thinks he is. And I mean, so that's where we have the opportunity to go.
I like it. I think Brandon's maybe more a wiffle ball player guy.
I've played pickleball once out in California.
And you got beat, so you're not playing again.
It's brutal, and then, not playing anymore.
Yeah. Did you play Dan by chance?
Did I play who?
Dan Hahn?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Probably don't want to.
Yeah.
You're naming him.
From what I'm hearing, you don't. Yeah.
No.
Good. Melissa, what excites you about the next decade ahead, and what is Indiana about to accomplish?
I'm going to go a little bit along the lines of what Jim brought up. I think that, and I mean, Kurt started it off very nicely in his talk. We just have an incredible opportunity. Regan Streif has some of the best electronic health records in the world, and we have all this great orthopedic capital, but as Kurt said, we don't have the imaging. And so that's one of the key missing assets that something like this grant can do, because we need it from all the orthopedic practices across the state, and we need to have the infrastructure and the resource to hold. That data is hard to hold. That's a lot of data, those images. But we need that, and then we need AI and machine learning. And then, yes, we're gonna predict Brandon's pickleball injury. We're gonna predict who's going to have osteoporosis, and not just predict it, but we have some good therapies for a lot of these things, so then we can treat them, and then they won't go break their bone and have to have Roman help them. And so that's what we can do if we all come together, but it does take some money, it takes some seed funding to get that infrastructure and that database together.
I like that, yeah. And we'll go with the rest of the group. Where do you see Indiana in the next 10 years? Very broad, but we've got, locally here, we've got the projects we mentioned over the next 3 to 5 years. We got our hands full with lots of projects, and the hope is that this is gonna bring life into more projects. But where do you see Indiana in the next 10 years? And are there any other regions that we should keep an eye on as we're very competitive here? Anybody nipping at our heels?
Well, I don't know who's nipping at our heels, but I can tell you at the State House, I am always advocating Warsaw orthopedics, and loudly. And so in the next 10 years, I think that we have such an opportunity to be the biggest life sciences state in the country. We have the know-how, we have the experience, the knowledge, and the panels that you've heard today. I mean, I did it again. I love to be the dumbest guy in the room. And there's so many smart people here. We have such an opportunity, but we've just got to be focused and grab it.
If we are not on the same level as Boston in 10 years, we have failed miserably. And that's all of us in the room. Boston is this gold standard as it pertains to life sciences and med device. Like they have 19 of the top 20 life science companies are all, have some footprint there. We have 4 R1 institutions. We have the most valuable pharmaceutical company in the world. We have a CEO and Yvonne Tornos at Zimmer Biomet who said 10 years from now, if that Zimmer Biomet is going to put this Zimmer Biomet out of business. We have leaders like Rep Snow. We have people who love the community and love the industry like Jim Lancaster. You have the MSK engine. You have IU Lab, the initiative that's happening. You have great things that Purdue University is doing. Cook, Roche, I can go on. You have BioCrossroads, who's doing this event, not in Indianapolis. It's in Warsaw, Indiana. And the reason why Plug and Play is doubling down on the state of Indiana and why it means so much to me is I have 3 kids under 4, and this is their future. And if we don't come together, break down the silos, and all start rowing in the same direction, we won't make it to Boston. We won't beat San Diego or San Francisco. My expectation in what we're doing at Plug and Play as part of this ecosystem is when you say Boston, you will also say Indiana. And that's not Indianapolis, and that's not Warsaw. It's the ecosystem. You can get from Warsaw to Indianapolis in 2 hours. It's an easy drive. So what I'm set out to do from our team's position, Eileen and Carlin's are out there. They know this is our North Star. Boston's who we're going after. And there's no reason why we're still an emerging life science ecosystem. We have to come together and do this collectively. And I just wrote this this director's newsletter that goes out. If you want it, send me an email. Eileen will put you on the list. It's not that thought-provoking. But I'm sitting we have an office in Zimmer Biomet's building, Building 3. I think we were the first person to ever sublease office space from Zimmer Biomet, no big deal. And I'm sitting there and I'm writing this. I'm like, I don't know what to write, don't know what's going on. I'm trying how do I finish this? I'm not that eloquent with words.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'd lose the Brandon part of it. And I'm sitting there, and there's a railroad tracks. Well, there's a McDonald's and a Domino's, which is very challenging during lunchtime to not go over there and indulge. But there's railroad tracks. And the CSX railroad goes right by. And the train's going by, and I'm kind of laughing, and it's probably like 7:30 in the morning. And I was like, well, that's what we're doing. Like, we are the train. Plug and Play is part of the train. And your options are either get on board or get out of the way. There's no reason to get in the way of MSK, IU Lab, what Purdue's doing, what Notre Dame's doing, what Plug and Play's doing, what OrthoWorks is doing, what BioCrossroads is doing. We're all talking. Like the entities I just mentioned, we are all talking to try and go the same direction. So you can either get out of the way or get on the train. The choice is yours. And I think, again, there's a little hubris here, but I'm so tired of us being this humble Hoosier mentality. Like, we've got to tell people we're not a flyover state. And so I get passionate about it because I spend time with this guy, and we talk about it behind closed doors, and it gets me excited for, but there's a proverb that society grows great when old men or women are planting trees in which they'll never feel the shade of. We have so many of those people in this community that I just want this to all work out, like for them and for my kids. And I think we have a great, great opportunity. And Vince, I thank you again for bringing this up here. It's very important. Thank you. I'm going to be Rep Noel at some point, learning from Rep Snow.
You'll make me run through a wall after that one. That was great. Jim.
Yeah, I think, I go back to the last panel a little bit, and I think about Laurent at Medartis, and I think about what Brian's done with his company. And we know those stories in Warsaw as part of the orthopedic community. I mean, my vision, my goal, my dream for us as we think about this MSK engine is we take that same example and we just proliferate it across the state. And all of a sudden, 10 years from now, as the compelling message that Brandon just shared is everybody's thinking about Indiana that way, right? This is, if you want to build a life science startup, you definitely go to Indiana because it is not only is it a ripe environment to do it, but you have people that just like each other, like to work together, like to move things forward, and frankly, sometimes don't even care who gets the credit for it. They just want to move it forward. So I think that's almost maybe one of our unique selling points is that you take that Hoosier, humbleness, that Hoosier mindset where people just want to move things forward, and you do it in this environment that's so ripe. Man, that's a powerful place to be.
And we bring startups from around the world to Warsaw through our accelerator programs. I think we've had 5 or 6 stay a little longer. And it's only because, like, oh, well, I have people who care about me and they want to see me succeed. Like right now, if I rewind what I said, we need venture capital to be here. All of the great work we're doing, if we don't have venture capital in 3 to 5 years, like dumping into these, whether it's research coming off of the institutions or these startups, if we don't have venture capital dollars, then we won't make it to Boston. And so that's, I think, where people like Vince and I, we're thinking, okay, that's cool. We have all these great initiatives happening. We're getting innovation. We're talking to startups. We're building startups. We're bringing startups around the world. But now they need funding. And it can't just be non-dilutive grant funding from NIH. We can't just rely on that sort of funding. And so there's a group that's trying to figure out the venture capital piece. And that's where we each kind of play a role in what this will be. But if any of you have deep pockets, BioCrossroads has a fund. Right. There you go, Vince.
I think we have an offering plate we can kind of, Drew, do we have an offering plate around here somewhere? Okay, good. Craig, what should Warsaw and the industry do more emphatically to underscore the innovation and economic impact of our orthopedic companies? I mean, we want to make it inviting for them to come here, but also to stay.
Yeah, so that's kind of been a process I've been on is, for Warsaw specifically, if you've driven around, it's an older town. Those of us who grew up here, live here, we're very proud of it. But we also recognize that we've got to invest dollars into building out amenities, more quality of life type of things, take advantage of our natural resources in the lakes, those types of things. And so one of the things, when I was a hiring manager at DePuy, we would interview someone, and invariably they wouldn't stay here. They wouldn't take the job because the trailing spouse would get out of the car and go, where's the mall? Well, that was back in the 90s, mind you. We don't have malls now, but we've got to be attractive. We've got to, because people they will live where they really fall in love with that place. They'll work anywhere. And so we've got to be the type of place that people want to be here. We're attractive, and then we keep them, we retain them. And so my whole point with, I was able to get $30 million in the budget in 23, and it was specifically to work on quality of life type projects for the sake of the orthopedic industry, to retain talent. And that, to me, is really what we need to continue to do as a state, holistically. But I'm going to be very biased. In 27 budget, I'm coming hopefully with some more money, so specifically for Warsaw. But I'll spread the love a little bit.
I'm hoping this is being recorded so we can run that.
I like it. We like where your head's at. Melissa, just going back to the grant proposal, what might be developed in Indiana that patients have never seen, and how will this work help apply it to health today?
Yeah, so I think that you've heard a lot because of AI. I think we're going to have smart implants that will tell us when there's an infection before the patient knows. They'll tell us how to get better and when we need replacing. I think we're going to be able to predict and prevent, like I said, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, et cetera. And then we're going to be able to help those who do get injured recover more quickly because of all of this. I think that not only, we heard a lot about 3D manufacturing with metals and additives and so forth, but we're going to 3D print bone and muscle, soft tissues, so that we can use those instead of organ transplants and so forth. So there's going to be a lot of technologies in the future that will really allow us to live better lives.
I like it. Good. Brandon, obviously you talked a lot about plug and play. You've seen a lot of things from different sectors as you're getting up to speed with everything plug and play over the last couple of years. What do you think we can learn from any other sector and use here to help bolster what we're doing?
So the team out in Silicon Valley, like when you go out there, they all are willing to take all of the risk, all of the time. They're all entrepreneurs. They all want to make billions of dollars. They all want to be the next Zuckerberg or Jensen. All of them are that way. So whether you're in Apple or you're in NVIDIA, you are thinking and operating as an entrepreneur. You're trying to innovate. We don't do that in Indiana. Like, we're very risk adverse. I mean, I think about, like, my dad. Like, my trajectory was, all right, we're going to go work in a factory as an entry level and kind of work your way up, and you just stay there, and they'll give you a paycheck every week, and hopefully you make a little more than what your expenses are, and that's just the life. Like, that's what you're going to do. And by the grace of God, I'm at this venture capital firm out of Silicon Valley. But everybody in the Bay Area thinks that way, and we just don't hear. I was on campus in Bloomington last week and Indy this week, listening to, and some of them are in the crowd, I see you, wildly intelligent researchers, just geniuses who've done all of this research and have come up with all of these great ideas, and they're not being commercialized. And one, there's some level of disincentive from the institution to do that. But two, I think it's just like, you got to take the risk. And that's, why would I take the risk? I'm trying to get tenure, so I'm just going to do the research, and I mean, that's my job. And I think if we can start embedding these opportunities to pair really good research off of the schools with really good CEOs from around the world, and then seed fund it with $500,000, I think we can start taking some of this IP off the universities that are so great in this state and start building transformative businesses that places like Cook and Roche and Lilly are willing and wanting to work with. And so I think that we can talk about entrepreneurship, we can talk about innovation. We don't do it at scale here in the state of Indiana.
Good, that's a good challenge. Jim?
Yeah, I was sincere earlier when I said, everybody should find an opportunity to go out to a summer summit or winter summit at Plug and Play, because as a mechanical engineer, been in the orthopedic business, Midwest person, you know, it's a different vibe. It is such a different vibe. And you get out there, and I use the analogy of like, instead of talking about a problem, you're sitting there with an audience of 300-400 people, and all they're doing as you're just having conversations with them is they're just thinking about solutions, technical solutions, and then how to put that into a business. I mean, and it's almost like it's its own language. It definitely has its own feel. And I think that's what Brandon's saying. And I would just say you have to almost see it and feel it to know what it is. Because until I went the first time, I was like, I didn't get it. And then once you go, you're almost kind of kid-like giddy, because it's like there's no rules, there's no boundaries, there's no rules. All people see are opportunities. And I think, to your point, we need some of that here. We need some of that here where, you know, somebody says, well, you can't do it, and you say, well, the hell I can. We're going to go do it, right? You know?
Yeah, and I think so it's kind of open invitation. If you want to come out to a Plug and Play Summit, happy to help you out on getting out there. It is incredible. It's 4,000 people. It's 3 days. It's at our corporate headquarters. There's 500 VCs. There's 400 startups. There's 19 different industry verticals that pitch and present. And it's like Shark Tank on steroids. You have a 3-minute pitch, and then there's your demo table. Hopefully you make someone interested enough to come talk to you. And it is like that from the morning to the night. And what Eileen Alberding, Carlins Joas, myself, like, we're just trying to take threads of that and get it back here to the state of Indiana. Because if we can start getting people to think that way, then you're going to start having people from Indiana University like Dr. DeMarkey, 22 years at Lilly, 22 years at IU. I think he's had 6 startups. I think all of them have exited to Novo and to others. And it's like, that's the poster child of the innovation we could have coming out of Purdue, Notre Dame, IU, Grace, and everywhere else. So I think it's easy for me to say standing up here, because I just want to write checks into these ideas. I don't have to do all of the work. But it's something that I think if we can start pulling some of that Silicon Valley, Boston swagger, you know, here, that's going to attract venture capital dollars. That's going to really scale these local companies. I mean, again, Reverend Depew was one person, and look what he grew. Like J.O. Zimmer was one person. Eli Lilly was one person. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. You get a startup that can scale, and a place like this that's ripe for business to take off. Like, I think you can start, you know, having companies like that happen organically off these institutions in places like Warsaw and Indy and Bloomington and all around.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Talking about other sectors, just real quick, maybe Craig, one of our other industries here in the area is agriculture, right? And we're looking to maybe lean into that a little bit more and get something started. I think there's something to be said about what we can learn from that industry as well, with some parallels with the orthopedic industry and med tech. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is at the State House is we're very proud of the orthopedic industry, but don't forget there's an industry older than that that's been here for many years, and that was agriculture. We're very, very blessed to have heavy ag here. We've got ag tech, ag business, large farms. So one of the things that we're trying to do is really duplicate what OrthoWorks has done for orthopedics, is create something for AgriWorks, if it's what I'll call it anyway. And it's really to promote and market the ag industry and try to bring more ag tech and ag business here as well. So we're really trying to diversify a little bit in our community. It's you know, a little scary if one of these companies takes off from the orthopedic industry and goes somewhere else, we could really be hurt. And so we're really trying to prop up the agriculture industry here. And we'll just see where that goes. That's something that we're working on. We've got a group of folks that kind of agreed to be on a board and just kind of see what we can do. But that's one of the things we're looking at. And then recently we were just awarded an automotive group that came here, 1,800 jobs, $60 million investment in the next 2 years. So again, back to diversification, we're really looking to kind of get a whole bunch of different types of jobs and skill sets here. It may be a little bit threatening to some of the orthopedics when we have more job openings, but I love competition, so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think I speak for many leaders. You know, there's two ways to look at that. We could look at it as competition, or we can look at it to see who benefits, and that's our residents here in Kosciuszko County, and then ultimately our patients down the road. So let's give it a round of applause for our group here. Thank you. Melissa, you're staying. Yep. So as we kind of wrap things up, just want to thank these panelists for their expertise in the conversation of forward thinking and forward looking and where we're at and where we're going. What we've heard today reinforces that Indiana's leadership in musculoskeletal health isn't just a point of pride, it's a responsibility that we all have and we all carry with us. It's an opportunity that we can't afford to miss. So to help close out the day with vision, intention, we're bringing a national voice who spent his career advancing musculoskeletal research and translating innovation into impact. I'm going to be joined by Dr. Melissa Cassina. As she's already stayed here, Dr. Kurt Weiss is going to be back here as well. And then please join me in welcoming Hisham Drisi, as Dr. Kurt Weiss had mentioned, a great mentor and great friend. Dr. Hisham is the professor and chair of research at Emory University School of Medicine, Emory Musculoskeletal Research Center president-elect, and Orthopedic Society, and they're going to talk about some final reflections. So thank you, and all to you.
Thank you very much. Wow, what amazing day. I am definitely humbled by the phenomenal energy that I was able to witness today, and also by my peers, some friends and some new friends. This is a great place, is what everything that I have heard is telling me. So I'm tasked with putting together kind of what's the summary of what happened today. I started by listening to who are you as a community in your story. And it is clear to me from the first panel that community is at the heart of the unique know-how of these 130 years of success that have been fostered here in Indiana, and specifically in Warsaw. Why wouldn't the globe want to come to you? It is obvious that the globe should come to you because of what you have accomplished, because of the history that you have built, and because of the innovation that you have developed throughout these years, and the innovation that you continue to seek for this field that is so dear to all of you, obviously, and also to me. So this community is ready, full of energy, to carry on this mission, to grow, but also to use local talent, retain the talent that you already have, and then attract new talent from elsewhere. We've heard this all throughout and across the different panels today. The substantial commitment that I've heard today of the state, the ortho and pharma industry, from the academic institutions, the NGOs, the community at large, is something that resonates pretty strongly. And that commitment is what will lead you to grow, not to be compared to other places, because their model is actually different than the model that you have. It's the identity that you have here that makes you special. You may not want to be a Boston because you are a Warsaw, Indianapolis,
Indiana specific place and special place. And so a place that is based on grassroots type of growth is more likely to not have to import, but to expand instead. And in thinking about importing talent, fostering the talent that's already existing here is, in my humble opinion, the strength that you have that has afforded you this sustainability that others perhaps may not witness. So we heard also from our keynote speaker, my dear friend, Kurt. We heard about his journey. We heard also about how life has taken him to become this compassionate leader, his own life, or the fear of losing it has taken him to this path. And this has blessed not only a clinical trial, has not blessed only his family for having him in their life for a long period of time and hopefully for many, many, many years to come, but also has blessed us as a community with a leader that understands and comprehends the importance of bridging. I think that me as a scientist, as a researcher, my goal is to have impact. We can do research, but that research needs to be impactful. And to be able to take the work that I do in the laboratory into clinical practice, I need the physician scientist. The physician scientist is not just the soundboard, it is the translator that is able to take this innovative discoveries into clinical practice. And so we started thinking along the way of whatever we're trying to do today, which is the incubator model. In that model, you're bringing different talents, you're putting them together, and you're forcing them to interact with one another. And what they have in common is orthopedics, the orthopedic patient, or musculoskeletal, right? And so that incubator model that we have is going to flourish if we have the different expertise that talk to each other. And so I come from a humble upbringing. My grandmother, who actually didn't go to college, taught me one thing. It takes two hands to clap. You can't clap with one hand. And this is what I have learned today from what Kurt is telling us. Teamwork is important, but also having the different expertise work together is the only key to be able to accelerate the transition of this discovery into clinical practice and make us be better at what we do. We heard a lot about big data, and there's conflicting ideas about what AI can do versus what AI cannot do. I think that we had a clear explanation of what machine learning has been doing for many, many, many years, and how can we leverage this to be able to interpret things that are available to us at our fingerprints, but we haven't yet exploited. And MSK radiology is a very important component in any orthopedic practice to be able to interpret what's happening. And there are some radiologists who can see the invisible, and there are some radiologists that cannot see the invisible. And so it's a talent, it's an art. To be able to use machine learning and AI to exploit that is definitely going to be very useful. So we've heard a lot of that. And I think that that is a good direction to actually pursue. And I'm excited that the NSF grant is carrying on an important component of how do we leverage AI for innovative discoveries. A holistic approach is another thing that I've heard. We do need a holistic approach, and we do need to think about patients as a whole and not just think about an organ. I've worked for many years on joint diseases, osteoarthritis in particular, and initially we thought it was a cartilage disease. And then we heard from the rheumatologist that it was a synovial inflammation disease. And we heard from others that it was a pain disease. Well, it's a joint disease. And today we're realizing that from the joint, you're going to have issues with the heart, you're going to have issues with the brain, you're going to have issues with muscle. We can no longer box ourselves in the way we think about science, and especially if we're using this science to go towards patients without thinking in a holistic manner. And so we heard a lot of that, and for that, I thank all the speakers for reminding us that we are here to work towards one goal, and this goal is to alleviate pain, create motion for the real boss, and that's patient X. So I hear a lot that musculoskeletal research can be eventually secondary because you don't die from musculoskeletal research. I beg to disagree. We just are not great at explaining to the world how important it is. It is one of the most problematic and costly diseases, more so than others. And if you don't die from it, which in certain cases it happens, dying emotionally is not fun. And not being able to perform the day-to-day tasks that we want to perform is a problem, especially when it becomes chronic, especially as we're getting older, especially as aging now is leading us to a higher life expectancy. So these are all things that I heard today, and I think that at the end, in the very last session, I'm compelled to say, ask Brandon. So there's this ad where an executive starts a job and is given a book and it says, ask so-and-so. Brendan actually today has used his emotion to say so much about the wonderful state in which you have grown this ecosystem that I listen to. And it is in those terms, perhaps, that I feel being competitive needs to be. It's in being proud of your achievements, is to not compare yourself to others, is to realize that the potential and the legacy is what truly matters. And I have seen all of that. I am seriously and sincerely humbled by everything that I have seen today. And I want to thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to address you today. Thank you so much. So I wanted to end this and not be the one speaking as much, which is very, very difficult, and ask some other questions from both our keynote and my friend Melissa, for whom I have tremendous respect. Your accomplishments and achievements have been today acknowledged and recognized, and they will continue to be acknowledged and recognized when you will be told that your NSF, hopefully, we're crossing our fingers, has been selected for to be finalist. So Melissa, in all of this work that you have been doing, the grant, the leadership of one of the most respected centers in musculoskeletal research in the country, I want to know what are the biggest moments that led you to have this vision, the vision that you have to link science to medicine and to think in terms of musculoskeletal health rather than musculoskeletal research?
It's been a journey, but honestly, I just want to see us do more and transform the industry. And it's very clear you can't do it alone. You need that supportive team. And I may have some great ideas, but I can't get all my ideas out there because I don't know all those other processes. And one of the things that when I saw that RFP from NSF about competing for this $160 million grant, I said, this is perfect for us because it said you have to have a regional competitive advantage. And I knew we had that in spades. I've already told you, we have Lilly, we have our ICMH, which I direct, we have everything that's here in Warsaw. And you combine that together and we can do it. And we know that we need infrastructure. We know that the surgeon may have a great idea, but that surgeon may not be able to take that to the patient because they don't have an engineer. They don't have time to find an engineer. They don't have time to do the business side of things. Well, this is what we can all do together. Whether we get money from VC or from other opportunities or from grants, we can also have sweat equity. And this is one of the things we actually used as pilot data. Now I'm showing my academic side. This is pilot data for the grant. We're showing that we can come together and we can do great things when we come together. But pilot data, there's somebody out here in this audience, actually there's many somebodies, where a surgeon had an idea. True story, went to Zimmer. Zimmer said, $3 million, 3 years. And the person said, okay, well, that's gonna be a little long. And they said, well, you could go down the street, somebody else might be able to help you. True story, 2 years, $2 million, and, but you'll be in a queue and we'll get to you who knows when. So this person gets a whole bunch of different folks together and they're going to do the same thing in a third of the time at a sixth of the cost. And it's de-risked because they had all these other people, the marketing people, all these people come together. And that's how you can de-risk things, you can move the cycle faster, and you can make great innovation. Now, this may be slightly smaller in scope compared to predicting osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, but we need all of these solutions, and we need them now, and we need them in 10 years from now. So I think that's really the goal here, is to work together and do great things together. And so I look forward to what the future has to hold, and I hope we have good news in the near future.
So I haven't thought about this for years until just now. You talked about sweat equity. And the very first lab I was in was with a PhD student named Mike Engel. And he said, Kurt, every time you sit down to do an experiment, you should make 2 lists. What you have, he was talking about reagents, what you have and what you want, or what you have and what you need. And that just came back to me after God knows how many years, because I think that you and your team have struck that balance perfectly. And you talked about sweat equity. This is why you're going to succeed here. And I'm predicting that. This is why you're going to succeed, because there is...
Can you be on the review panel, please?
Yeah. You have such a crystal clear, laser-focused understanding. These are our strengths, okay? And this is what we need to get better at. there's a hospital that I work at that I won't mention the name, where they do have all the pieces. They're a top 10 hospital in what they do. They're very good. They could be a world beater. All the pieces are there. They are good. They could be outstanding. And it'll never happen because you can't convince them that there's anything that they lack. They think that they're perfect. They've got it all figured out. What I sense here is hunger. Hunger to do all the things that you talked about, coming together, building the teams, doing a better job, and growing in all these ways. And I think that balance between what you have and what you want was articulated so beautifully, and that's why you're going to win.
And I concur.
Can you be a reviewer on the panel?
So Kurt, you work with patients, and today you brought two orthopedic patients here. And from your perspective, including as a patient yourself, former patient yourself, what are the biggest things that the medical community could actually do better today to help patients?
Oh, boy. Well, listen. That's probably the biggest thing. So two things I want to address. I'll try to do both succinctly. I don't know if this is part of your proposal or not, but one of the big things recently in clinical research, which I'm just dipping my toe into because I had to shut the lab down in COVID, is patient-reported outcomes measures. And what does the patient's experience, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, and trying to do a better job of involving our sort of patient advocacy groups with getting them to talk to the science. These are the experiments that we are thinking about doing because we think they're important. Do you have a sarcoma right now? Does this resonate with you? What would you like to see us doing? So in more patient involvement, soup to nuts with the research project, I would definitely like to see that, and more and better listening. And finally, very selfishly, and I'll be fast, survivorship. And this can be extrapolated from the cancer world to other things, I think. There comes a time, fighting cancer is actually pretty straightforward. You wake up, you do whatever you got to do that day to see the next sunrise, and you repeat as many times as necessary. Mm-hmm. There comes a time, if everything goes well, that there's no more surgery scheduled and there's no more chemotherapy and the doctors are all high-fiving each other because it looks like you're going to survive. And you're grateful, of course you're grateful, but it's not quite right. And how do you put the pieces of a life back together when the pieces are quite literally different sizes and shapes? That is nowhere more true than in orthopedics. And so trying to do a better job of shepherding people through that survivorship process, whether it's a distal femur replacement or a total knee, I'd like to see us get better at.
And today we heard a lot about personalized medicine and personalized orthopedics. I mean, surgery, every case is a different case, and in some way it is personalized. But then again, with the work and the innovations that we have seen today with the printing, with the proper size taking into account the patient, where do you see personalized orthopedic care go?
So the old joke used to be, for a knee replacement, they made two sizes, too big and too small. And now, you have sizes A through G, and, Zimmer gives you 5 different ways to cut the tibia. And so I'm excited to see what's that and we laugh about it because it's true, and we can laugh about it now because it's so much better than it was, 25, 30 years ago. So what are we going to be laughing about in 30 years? I don't know that sizes, having sizes A through Z instead of A through K is the answer. I don't know that necessarily more is better. I think better is going to be better. And matching the right procedure and the right device to the right person. Like, how do we do that? I think that's where I'd like to see us grow.
I'm getting back to you, Melissa, about the NSF. So it's clear that it will create opportunities. It will create job opportunities. It's going to enhance profile on a multitude of dimensions. Can you speak a little bit to how it will help Indiana patients? And what's your vision for that?
So again, I think it comes to you want to ask the patients. So we want to do it from the beginning. We want to talk to the patients. They may not want all those fancy implants. They may want some other different solution. Maybe it's an assistive device. Maybe it's something else. So ask what people want. Ask, again, the surgeon what they need. How can we help you be better? Ask the student what kind of training. Ask the employer what kind of students do you need? What kind, how can we all come together? And I think that really is the key component. Let's work together. Let's understand what everybody needs. Let's articulate it. Let's follow through on it. Let's just come together. So please, everybody lean in. Little commercial. Back there, there's some information you can pick up.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, Kurt, what more are you seeing that you'd encourage Indiana to adopt, things that you have seen elsewhere? Is there something in particular in terms of musculoskeletal health?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think that the challenge of breaking down silos is unique to Indiana, fortunately or unfortunately. I think everybody struggles with that because everybody's works really hard and is really busy at their jobs. Melissa's a busy scientist, and so are you, and I'm a busy surgeon. So it can be difficult to make the space in your brain and in your day to do the reaching out in the building. But I mean, maybe that's the point of the grant, Melissa, is that to make it a little bit easier to build a road by which people can do that work a little bit easier and a little bit better, because clearly everybody wants to. We just got to make have got to make it easy for people. And if you can accomplish that with this grant, I think that'll be terrific, and it'll be a model for all these other places, my place included, that struggle with getting everybody in the room at the same time to talk about stuff that we all care about.
And I think that's really true. Any place that there's a concentration of experts across the spectrum in whatever field, then if we show our success, then they can use this, and then there can be great cancer, there can be great cardiovascular, it can be great space sciences.
All right. Well, thank you very much for allowing us to share this energy that makes you amazing. And again, please join me in congratulating both of my friends in here.
Well, thank you, Dr. Drusi and Dr. Christina, Dr. Weiss, for great kind of wrap-up reflections on the day, and also for your leadership in sharing a bold vision for what's possible. To today's conversations, from patients to manufacturing to state and national policy, remind us that Indiana has the capacity and commitment to lead in musculoskeletal health, and I hope you walk away all as evangelists for that mission. This work matters because it changed lives, as we've heard so poignantly from the patient panel and Dr. Weiss and many others. It improves mobility, restores independence, and keeps people moving, keeps us moving, working and living full lives. We're super grateful for you to spend your day with us today and contributing your expertise and being part of this ecosystem. I want to especially thank the organizing committee. This was one big wedding to plan. For us in BioCrossroads, that are based in Indianapolis, I asked my team to plan a destination wedding here in beautiful Kosciuszko County. So I want to give a shout out to Lindsay Grayson, Amanda Decker, Greg Kuderman, Ryan Christner, Barb Geringer, Denise Good, Dr. Cassina, Dr. Emmy, and Nathan Brown, Dr. Fehrenbacher, and Jim Lancaster, who are the organizing committee for this awesome event. So thank you very much. Additionally, I want to thank our sponsors, moderators, and partners, especially our Warsaw and Winona Lake community for hosting us today. And then also to our presenting sponsor, Zimmer Biomet. Without your support, we couldn't have done this. And our gracious host today, Grace College. It's been an awesome venue. This venue's been just perfect site for what we wanted to try to accomplish, so thank you. I also want to thank our great partner, OrthoWorks, Ryan and your team. It's been an awesome collaboration. IU Research, a great supporter, All In Kosciuszko, Plug and Play Indiana, Enlil, Orthopedic Research Society, and Dr. Drisi, I would love to see Orthopedic Research Society bring their conference here in future years. So can we make that happen? And Johnson & Johnson MedTech as well. So let's give all our sponsors a hand. We look forward to continuing our conversations that we started here, and we hope you'll join us at our future BioCrossroads events, our signature events. That certainly this will rival that for sure. But our signature event is our annual Life Science Summit. This year, we'll focus on One Health and defining One Health and how Indiana can lead in One Health, the intersection of animal, plant, and human health. That's going to be hosted at the new global headquarters for Elanco Animal Health in Indianapolis. That's coming up in November. And then afterwards, well, next, actually, I'm going to do something else here. Here we have, and then looking at our FrameWORX in December, but stay tuned. There may be a date change to that, but we will focus our next FrameWORX on innovations in oncology, including radiopharmaceuticals. And so we'd love for you to get on our mailing list, go to our website, sign up, and follow us on social media. Our LinkedIn channel is where we really keep people informed about not only our events, but also serves as a channel, as a microphone and amplifier for all the great work that you're doing in this state. I also want to recognize the scientific poster winners today, and thank you, Dr. Fehrenbacher, for leading the effort and bringing this together. We had some awesome posters, from some great promising researchers. We had 3 different categories. One is for research and available for trainees, and these are our winners for this category. And first prize, Elizabeth O'Connell from University of Notre Dame, but congratulations to all of these scientists. These are the innovators of tomorrow. Second category is for research for faculty and staff, and these are our winners, and especially congratulations to Mariola Gris Capdeville from IU School of Medicine. And then our last category is innovation commercialization. And these are our winners, and our first prize winner is Milos Marinkovic from the IU School of Medicine. Congratulations. If I can get all of the folks that had their name on the screens up here on the stage, we'd like to get a photo of you and celebrate you. So please come on up. Oh, actually, after I finish my comments. Thank you, Phyllis. All right, so for now, please stay for refreshments, check out the great posters, continue networking, visit the booths that are still open, and encourage you to continue to have a conversation, connect with each other, and let's go build this ecosystem even greater and better. Thank you.